Chapter 86. Taiji Palace, Imperial Palace. The officials arrived and divided into two sides according to civil and military officials. Li Er put down a memorial and looked at a young official in the civil official line. He asked, "Minister Yuan, do you want to impeach the son of Li Jingma, a wealthy merchant in Chang'an?" The young official hurriedly stepped out and bowed. "Your Majesty, I do want to impeach Li Zishuan, the son of Li Jingma. According to the East Market Bureau, this person has been buying chicken seedlings in Chang'an for the past 2 days. Not only has the price of chicken seedlings skyrocketed, but the price of eggs has also more than doubled. This person has disrupted the market and driven up prices. I implore your Majesty to punish him severely." This person was the Taifu Temple's Vice Minister Yuan Wendao. The Taifu Temple was one of the 9 temples of the Tang Dynasty's central government. The chief minister of the Taifu Temple was a secondary third-rank official. The vice minister of the Taifu Temple was a secondary fourth-rank official. Taifu Temple was in charge of the country's finances and government decrees. It was in charge of the officials in the 4 cities of Jingdu, Pingzhuan, Zhuozhang, and Chongping. In addition to managing the country's finances and treasury, it directly led the 4 cities of Jingdu and Pingzhuan in the market management. It provided macro guidance and used measurement and balance to implement specific regulation. The East Market Bureau was only a 6th-rank official. Of course, he was not qualified to attend court. He could only report the abnormalities in the East Market to Yuan Wendao. Li Er curiously asked, "This Li Zishuan is just a commoner. Why didn't Taifu Temple directly punish him?" "Your Majesty, according to my investigation, this Li Zishuan has a close relationship with the eldest son of Duke Lu and the Crown Prince. I don't dare to make a decision without your Majesty's permission." Yuan Wendao originally wanted to arrest Li Zishuan directly, but then the East Market Bureau reported to him that Li Zishuan had a close relationship with Qing Chumo and Li Chengqian. Yuan Wendao was not sure about their relationship, so he directly reported it to Li Er. When Li Er heard this, he looked meaningfully at Li Chengqian, who was standing below. At the same time, he was somewhat dissatisfied with Yuan Wendao. This person held a high position, yet he was so timid. When interrogating someone, he actually treated them differently based on their status. He was really unqualified. Li Chengqian hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to look at Li Er. Yan Lide, who was in front of the civil officials, was shocked when he heard that someone was impeaching Li Zishuan. Just as he was about to defend Li Zishuan, he heard an angry shout. "Bullsh *T, you're full of nonsense. Is it illegal for Li Zishuan to spend his own money to buy things?" Qing Yaojin was so angry that he was the first to jump out and scold Yuan Wendao. Yesterday, when Qing Chumo returned home, he repeated Li Zishuan's advice to Qing Yaojin about raising chickens. Hearing this, Qing Yaojin thought carefully. After pondering for a while, he waved his hand and slapped the table. "Since that's the case, our family will also raise chickens. Tomorrow, we'll have the housekeeper buy 30,000 chickens and distribute them to the farmers. Let them raise 100 or 200 chickens per household. The conditions for raising chickens will be the same as Li Zishuan's family." Qing Chumo was flabbergasted. In his mind, his father would at most agree to raise 7,000 or 8,000, but he never thought that his father would be so bold as to ask for 30,000. Qing Chumo muttered, "That's right. That's right. Father, aren't you afraid that when the time comes, you won't be able to sell the chickens and lose everything?" Qing Yaojin patted Qing Chumo's head and laughed. "Chonyo, you're still too inexperienced. You haven't seen through it yet. Do you think that Li Zishuan is someone who is willing to suffer losses? Since he dares to raise 80,000 chickens, why should we be afraid of raising 30,000 chickens? Haha, I dare to conclude that there must be a big secret that no one knows. It's just that Li Zishuan doesn't want to talk about it. Our family will just follow behind that kid and make a small fortune." Qing Yaojin's appearance was rough, but in fact, His heart was as meticulous as hair. He understood the twists and turns in this matter with a little thought. At this time, he proudly pinched his beard, walked 2 steps and continued, "Besides, you forgot who that kid's master is. He is an immortal figure of the Taoist lineage. Li Zixuan's unreasonable actions this time may be a heavenly secret revealed to him by Taoist priest Spirit Void when he was alive. Alas, if it weren't for the fact that our family isn't as rich as that kid, I also want to buy 80,000 chickens. Haha, this kid is a little interesting." After listening to Qing Yaojin's analysis, Ching Chumo couldn't help but admire his father. The older the ginger, the spicier it is. In the imperial court, Yuan Wendao's face was tragically sprayed by Qing Yaojin's spittle, and his ears were buzzing because of Qing Yaojin's loud roar. He wiped his face and angrily said, "High Duke Lu, how can you deliberately cover up for Li Zixuan just because he has a good relationship with your son? Li Zixuan drove up prices and affected the people's livelihood. The evidence is conclusive. High Duke Lu, do you want to bend the law for personal gain?" Qing Yaojin was extremely angry. According to Yuan Wendao's words, his family also bought a large number of chickens today. Wasn't that also breaking the law? Qing Yaojin was too lazy to argue with him. He directly hit Yuan Wendao's nose with his uppercut. "I'm your mother. You're a villain who is twisting words and forcing logic. I'm not afraid to tell you that my Qing family also went to the East Market to buy tens of thousands of chickens today. Are you also going to punish me for my crime?" Yuan Wendao was just a weak scholar. How could he withstand Qing Yaojin's big fist? He was directly hit by this punch and flew far away. His nose was bleeding and he almost fainted. At this time, he knelt down to Li Er and cried, "Your Majesty, High Duke Lu maliciously hurt people in the imperial court. He also intended to protect the suspect. Your Majesty, please punish him." Qing Yaojin was furious and wanted to come up and beat him again. Qin Xiong, who was standing next to him, quickly came over and stopped him. "Jijie, you're not allowed to be presumptuous in the imperial court." Qin Shubao's old injury in the past 2 years was acting up. His legs and feet were not very good. Qing Yaojin did not dare to struggle. Only then did he calm down and looked at Li Er pitifully. "Your Majesty, I was rude in front of you just now. Your Majesty, please forgive me." Li Er was angered by this reckless guy. "Qing Jijie, why didn't you think of asking me to forgive you when you hit people before? In the imperial court, you actually hit a minister. It's really outrageous." Qin Shubao quickly bowed and begged for mercy. Jijie was just confused for a moment. "Your Majesty, please forgive me." Niu Jinda, Yu Qigong, and the other generals in the army also pleaded for mercy for Qing Yaojin. Although Li Er had a good relationship with Qing Yaojin, Qin Shubao, and the other old generals in private, he could not disappoint the other ministers. He shook his head and said, "Qing Jijie, your salary will be deducted for 3 months. We will see what happens next." Well, he had taken out so much money to buy chicken seedlings. Now his salary was gone. It seemed that he would have to tighten his belt in the future. But Qing Yaojin also knew that this punishment was very light. Qing Yaojin bowed and thanked him. "Your Majesty." Li Er looked at Yuan Wendao and asked, "Shaoqin Yuan, you said that Li Zixuan was driving up prices. Did he use this to make profits?" Yuan Wendao covered his nose and replied in a muffled voice, "Your Majesty, I didn't notice this." Li Er muttered, "Since he didn't use this opportunity to make profits, then he didn't disturb the market. But he needs to explain why he bought such a large number of chicken seedlings." Guards. A big Han general immediately walked in from outside the hall and bowed. "This general is here." Li Er ordered, "Go to Yongla Lane and bring Li Zixuan here." Yes. Although the big Han general did not know Li Zixuan, he still bowed and hurried out to find Li Zixuan. Chapter 87. Chang'an City, East Market. As the last curved plow was sold, there was a commotion outside the Strange Taste Pavilion. "That's it? I haven't bought it yet. Who asked you to come so late? Nyodahai, you should have come earlier. Those who came early today have already bought the curved plow. I guess old Nyo woke up late because he was sleeping with his wife at home? Ha! A man beside him said in a wretched manner. Nyodahai's face turned red. He pushed the man and said angrily, Bulsh *t, I went to sell eggs just now. I thought only people from our village would buy the curved plow, so I didn't rush to buy it. But now it seems that many people here are from other villages. How did they know about young master's curved plow? Sigh, I'm also puzzled. I saw a few people from Plum Village and Liujia Village just now. I asked them where they got the news from, but they didn't want to tell me. It must have been someone from our village who leaked it out. What a traitor! If I, Old Ox, knew who leaked it out, I would definitely beat him up. Nyodahai waved his fists and said angrily. At the side, Han Xiaodong shrank his neck and quickly slipped away with his tail between his legs. Get out of the way, get out of the way! At this time, a burly general in full armor and a group of soldiers squeezed into the crowd. Beside the general was a servant. Young master, His Majesty sent someone to bring you into the palace. Sanbao shouted as she entered the Strange Taste Pavilion. Today, the young general brought people to the Li mansion to find Li Zixuan. Li Jingma and Mrs. Li were shocked. They quickly asked the general if their son had caused any trouble. The general shook his head and explained, His Majesty didn't punish him. His Majesty is not here to condemn anyone. He just has something to ask of your son. Would Master Li please ask your son to come out and follow me into the palace? Li Jingma and Mrs. Li were relieved. They let San Bao bring them to the Strange Taste Pavilion. Li Zixuan was chatting with Sun Huiyuan in the Strange Taste Pavilion. He found that Sun Huiyuan's style of conversation was quite good. He wanted to chat with him. At this moment, he heard San Bao shouting outside that Li Zixuan wanted him to enter the palace. Li Zixuan subconsciously clamped his legs together to protect his balls. He did not want to enter the palace and become a eunuch. Sun Huiyuan was quite knowledgeable. He looked at Li Zixuan and said, Young master, it should be someone from the palace. You'd better go out and have a look. Li Zixuan had no choice but to walk out of the Strange Interest Pavilion. Along the way, he glared at San Bao, who didn't know how to speak. Are you Li Zixuan, young master Li? The young general stepped forward and asked. Li Zixuan saw that this man was tall and burly. His posture was tall and straight, and his lower body was steady. He had an imposing appearance. He was dressed in Mingguang armor. When the sun shone on him, he almost blinded Li Zixuan's titanium alloy eyes. This man's kung fu was probably not weak. Li Zixuan quickly cupped his hands and said, That's me. How should I address you, General? I am Dugu Mao. Since you are Li Zixuan, please follow me to the palace to have an audience with His Majesty. Dugu Mao? Li Zixuan was a little familiar with this name, but he couldn't recall it. However, people with the surname Dugu were usually more powerful. Therefore, he learned from the TV dramas in his previous life. He quickly took out a golden biscuit from his sleeve and stuffed it into Dugu Mao's hand. He smiled and said, General Dugu, may I ask why His Majesty is looking for me? Dugu Mao's expression changed. He quickly returned the golden biscuit and said coldly, Don't ask too much. Follow me to the palace. All right, it seemed like this man wasn't greedy. Li Zixuan had no choice but to follow Dugu Mao to the palace with a worried heart. At this moment, a loud shout was heard. Hold on, General. What crime did our young master commit? Why are you arresting him? Nyodahai stopped Dugu Mao and asked loudly. Yes, you can't leave. Our young master didn't commit any crime. Let go of our young master. When the surrounding Han family manners villagers heard Dugu Mao's cold words, they thought that he had brought people to arrest Li Zixuan. They all came out to stop him. Although commoners were afraid of officials, at this time, the villagers of the Han family manor still stood out bravely. Young master had shown great kindness to their Han family manor. Young master could show kindness without asking for repayment, but they couldn't be ungrateful. Otherwise, they would be criticized behind their backs by the villagers. Dugu Mao's expression changed drastically when he saw the villagers rushing over. He pulled out the saber at his waist and shouted, "His Majesty has ordered to summon Li Zishuan. Are you trying to rebel by obstructing me?" Li Zishuan hurriedly pulled Dugu Mao back and said anxiously, "General Dugu, please hold on. General Dugu, please wait. These villagers don't have that intention. Please allow me to speak with them." Li Zishuan was truly moved by the villagers' actions. In this feudal era where imperial power reigned supreme, they dared to stand up for him. As for him, he had only done something insignificant for them. What a simple and honest people. Li Zishuan naturally didn't want to see them get hurt because of him. Dugu Mao put away his saber and shouted, "Hurry up. His Majesty and the ministers are waiting." Li Zishuan nodded and walked towards the villagers, shouting, "Fellow villagers, His Majesty isn't here to punish me. He just summoned me for something. Uncles, please go home quickly." Nyodahai shouted, "Young master, is it really okay? If His Majesty really wants to punish you, I, old Nyo, will kneel in front of the palace gates and plead for young master's innocence. I believe that His Majesty wouldn't wrong a good person like young master." "I want to go too." "Me too." A bunch of voices echoed from the side. Li Zishuan said helplessly, "Uncle Nyo, it's really okay. Hurry up and bring the villagers back to the village." After calming everyone down, Li Zishuan followed Dugu Mao to the palace. After passing through the Vermilion Bird Gate and entering the palace, Li Zishuan looked around curiously. In his previous life, he had been to the Forbidden City in Beijing a few times. However, he had never been to the ancient Chang, an imperial palace in Xi'an. Furthermore, even if he went, he wouldn't be able to see it. At the end of the Tang Dynasty, when Zhuwan attacked Chang'an, he burned the entire city to the ground. Although the later generations repaired it, it was definitely impossible to restore it to its original state. As such, it was really not easy for Li Zishuan to see the original Tang Dynasty imperial palace. Although Li Zishuan didn't know why Li Er had called him here, it was useless to worry about such things. It was better to look at the scenery of the palace. Furthermore, if Li Er really wanted to find trouble with him, the person who came would definitely not be Dugu Mao, but the officials from the Supreme Court. After a while, Dugu Mao brought Li Zishuan to the outside of Taiji Palace. Taiji Palace was built on top of 36 stone steps. Standing at the bottom of the steps, one could only see the upturned eave. The auspicious beasts on the eaves, Xieji and Xieji, looked majestic under the faint sunlight. The pointed eaves that almost pierced through the clear sky were undoubtedly the embodiment of the supreme imperial power. "Wait here for a while, I will go in to report. When you go in later, pay attention to your etiquette. Don't forget what I just taught you," Dugu Mao instructed. "Thank you, General Dugu, I will pay attention." Li Zishuan cupped his hands and thanked. Along the way, other than teaching Li Zishuan about the palace etiquette, Dugu Mao didn't say anything else. Li Zishuan felt that Dugu Mao was angry about the matter of the golden pancake. In his heart, he thought that he was indeed too rash. Not everyone loved money. The television dramas in his previous life had killed people. Dugu Mao nodded and went in to report. A quarter of an hour ago, in Taiji Palace, Li Er saw Dugu Mao leaving and looked at Qing Yaojin. He asked with deep meaning, "Jijia, if I remember correctly, didn't you just say that your family is also preparing to buy tens of thousands of chicken seedlings?" Qing Yaojin stepped forward and answered, "Your Majesty, I am indeed planning to buy tens of thousands of chicken seedlings." Li Er smiled and asked curiously, "Oh? Jijia, why are you and Li Zishuan buying so many chicken seedlings?" Qin Shubao, Niu Jinda, and the other generals also looked at Qing Yaojin curiously. Qing Yaojin scratched his head and pretended to be ignorant. Your Majesty, I saw that my family's farmers were poor, so I gave them chicken seedlings for free and asked them to help raise the chickens. The eggs that they usually lay can be used to supplement their household expenses. Zhang Sun Wuji, Fang Xianling, and the other civil officials looked at Qing Yaojin in disbelief. Li Er also looked at Qing Yaojin suspiciously. He didn't believe that this fellow would have such meticulous thoughts. Is it really just because of this? Qing Yaojin hurriedly stepped forward and cupped his hands. Your Majesty, it is absolutely true. Li Er shook his head helplessly. His intuition told him that this matter was definitely not that simple. He made up his mind that when Li Zixuan came, he would definitely interrogate him properly. In fact, Qing Yaojin was wronged. He only followed Li Zixuan and raised chickens on a large scale. As for why Li Zixuan raised so many chickens, he didn't know either. Li Er looked at the officials and asked, "Do you have anything else to report?" At this moment, Yen Lide was about to walk out from the civil officials group. Who knew that another middle-aged official would be faster than him? That person walked out and bowed. Your Majesty, I have something to report. Li Er looked at the person in front of him and rubbed his head with a headache. He asked, "What does Minister Wei want to report?" In his heart, he thought, "I haven't done anything out of line recently, right? What is this Wei Xuanqing doing now?" That's right, this person was Wei Jing. This fellow didn't care who the other party was when he scolded people. Even Li Er had been scolded by him many times. Wei Jing cupped his hands and said to Li Er, "Your Majesty, I impeach Li Jingma's son, Li Zixuan." This child showed off his strange skills and made and sold a toy called a scooter. Countless children rode on it and played wantonly on the streets of Chang'an City. Not only did it seriously disrupt the order of Chang'an City, but it was also quite dangerous for those children. Your Majesty, please issue an edict to prohibit the sale of this item. When Li Er heard that Wei Jing wasn't here to scold him today, he heaved a sigh of relief. When he heard that Wei Jing was also here to impeach Li Zixuan, he couldn't help but be a little surprised. He thought to himself, "A few days ago I was still thinking about how to cultivate this kid. I didn't expect this kid to be a troublemaker. Today, he actually provoked two important officials to impeach him." Li Er was about to speak when he saw Dugu Mao come in. "Your Majesty, Li Zixuan has been brought here. He is waiting outside the hall." Dugu Mao bowed to Li Er and said. Li Er nodded and said, "Let him in." Then he looked at Wei Jing and said with a smile, "Just in time, this kid is here. Minister Wei, let's see how he explains it." Li Er was also looking forward to it. He had read a lot of information about Li Zixuan. In this hall, he was probably the one who understood Li Zixuan the most. Today, he was finally going to see the real person. He wanted to see how this kid was like. However, even he didn't expect to see Li Zixuan under such circumstances. Chapter 88. Outside Taiji Palace, Li Zixuan was waiting for Li Er to summon him. Since he had nothing to do, he looked around. Of course, he looked at the row of palace maids leaning against the wall outside the main hall the most. These palace maids were mostly young and beautiful, and they were all wearing pink low-cut dresses. Li Zixuan had divine skills, so his eyesight was very good. From far away, he could see the white and tender buns in the air, as well as the deep ravine in the middle. This feeling was as if he was using a telescope to look at beautiful women. This was not Li Zixuan being shameless. It was just that he was bored standing here, and he could not go to the pavilion to rest. Li Zixuan looked at this beautiful spring scenery, but in his heart, he cursed. This Li Er really knows how to enjoy life, letting so many young and beautiful women wear such low-cut dresses to serve him. Li Zixuan was lost in his thoughts when he suddenly heard a sharp voice coming from the main hall. Summon Li Zixuan for an audience. Li Zixuan quickly and quietly entered the main hall. It was the first time he met Li Er, so it would be a lie to say that he was not nervous. This was a feudal society, and the imperial power was supreme. If he made Li Er unhappy, it would be so easy to kill him. Therefore, Li Zishuan was a bit cautious. "This humble citizen Li Zishuan greets your majesty." Li Zishuan bowed. Yes, it was only a bow and not a kneeling. The Tang dynasty did not kneel, so it was a bow. Before the Song dynasty, it was impossible for a county magistrate to kneel. In the Tang dynasty, the emperor usually sat and the officials stood. Li Zishuan also didn't say anything like, "Long live the emperor, long live the emperor." On the way here, General Dugu told him in detail about the etiquette of meeting the emperor, so Li Zishuan did not make a fool of himself. "No need for formalities, rise." A dignified voice came from the main hall. Only then did Li Zishuan straighten his back and raise his head. Li Er saw that the young man before him had delicate and pretty features that were sharp and angular. His brows revealed a resolute look, and there was a unique kind of ethereal handsomeness. What surprised Li Er the most was that this was the first time this young man had met him, but he was neither servile nor overbearing, and there wasn't the slightest trace of fear in his eyes. Li Er secretly nodded. This young man could be considered a talent. One must know that during the Tang dynasty, one's appearance was the standard for selecting officials. Those who were too ugly would not be able to become officials. However, Qing Yaojin, Yu Qigong, Niu Jinda, and the other founding generals were exceptions. While Li Er was sizing up Li Zishuan was also secretly sizing up Li Er. He was very curious about this legendary Emperor Taizong of the Tang dynasty and wanted to see what he looked like. He saw Li Er wearing a heavenly crown and a python dragon robe. The pearls hanging down were at the same level as his eyes. Under the illumination of the 99 candles, they shone in all directions. He looked like a singer from the later generations who threw flirtatious glances at him, making people dizzy. It was impossible to see what he looked like. This was probably the greatest effect of the heavenly crown. Li Zishuan was quite depressed. He secretly thought that Li Er was too petty, not letting others see what he looked like. Could it be that he was too ugly? If Li Er knew what Li Zishuan was thinking, he would definitely cut this little brat into 8 pieces. When Li Er was young, he was also a famous wanderer in the Taiyuan area. He was handsome and his martial arts were not bad. How could he be as unsightly as Li Zishuan thought? Li Er said in a deep voice, "Li Zishuan, do you know why I asked you to come here today?" "I don't know." Li Zishuan's mouth twitched. He secretly thought, how would I know? That cold-faced General Dugu Mao didn't tell me. How would I know? Li Er pretended to be strict and said, "Humph, since you don't know, I will tell you personally. Just now, Minister Yuan of the Taifu Temple accused you of wantonly buying chicken seedlings, causing the price of chicken seedlings and eggs to skyrocket in Chang'an. You are driving up prices, disrupting the market, and affecting the people's livelihood. This is the first crime. In addition, Minister Wei accused you of showing off your skills and selling scooters. This scooter disrupts the order of Chang'an and affects the safety of children. This is the second crime." "Li Zishuan, do you have anything to say?" Li Zishuan was shocked. He really didn't expect that the minister would make an issue out of these two matters. He thought quickly. After a moment, he stepped forward and bowed to Li Er. "Your Majesty, I have something to say." Li Er nodded and said, "Say it." At this time, Li Zishuan cupped his hands and asked the minister next to him, "May I ask which one is Minister Yuan?" At this time, Qing Yaojin pointed to Yuan Wendao, whose face was covered with blood, and said with a smile, "This is Minister Yuan." Li Zishuan glanced at Qing Yaojin. Qing Yaojin nodded at him meaningfully, making him feel at ease. Yuan Wendao stood up and said, "I am the minister of the Taifu Temple. What do you want?" Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Minister Yuan accused me of driving up prices. I have something to say. I need chicken seedlings, but the quantity is a bit large. I use my own money to buy what I need in the East Market. Minister Yuan, which law of the Tang Empire did I violate? Is there a law in the Tang Empire that the people can't buy chicken seedlings wantonly? Yuan Wendao quibbled. You are hoarding, driving up prices, and disrupting the market. You have raised the price of chicken seedlings and eggs so high. How can ordinary people afford it? Li Zishuan walked to Yuan Wendao, looked into his eyes and said, Minister Yuan, chicken seedlings are not like grain and fodder. They are strategic materials. How can you say that they are hoarding? The so-called market is just supply and demand. The supply is less than the demand, so the price will naturally rise. Do you think that when I need something, I have to consider whether it will cause the price to rise after I buy it? If so, what is the benefit of this market to the people? What's more, Minister Yuan, you only see the price of chicken seedlings and eggs rising. The people can't afford eggs. But why don't you see that because of the rising price of chicken seedlings and eggs, there are tens of thousands of farmers near Chang, and who make extra profits by selling their own eggs? The world is full of profit. Where the supply is less than the demand, the market will naturally balance the supply and demand through the mutual circulation of goods in different areas. The market has its own regulation ability. If people forcibly intervene, it will only produce the opposite effect and make the market lose its vitality. Good, well said. Although Qing Yaojin didn't understand these market theories, he felt that Li Zishuan was very good at what he said. After hearing Li Zishuan's words, Fang Xianling was quite surprised. At this time, he stood up and bowed to Li Zishuan. Your Majesty, Li Zishuan's words are rather reasonable, and this old subject also feels that it is time to reflect on the market management system of my great Tang. Li Zishuan looked at Fang Xianling gratefully. Although he didn't know the official in front of him, he was able to see the limitations of the current market system. Li Zishuan was grateful and admired him. The market in the Tang Dynasty as a commodity trading place could not spontaneously form because of the certain development of the commodity economy in a certain place. It was also not a natural product or inevitable result of economic development. In the Tang Dynasty, the right to set up and abolish the market was clearly owned by the government. This market system, which was completely dominated by the government, was certainly not conducive to the development of the market. It would only make the market gradually lose its vitality. Li Er didn't expect Li Zishuan to be so reasonable. What was even more unexpected was that Fang Xianling would stand up for him. This old subordinate of his was well read in the classics and history. He was far-sighted and had extremely high standards. He didn't expect him to agree with Li Zishuan's words. Today, Li Er just called Li Zishuan over to see him. He didn't mean to punish him, but he didn't expect to be surprised. He nodded to Fang Xianling thoughtfully and said, Fang Xianling, let's talk about this later. Then he looked at Li Zishuan and said, in this case, I won't pursue the crime of driving up prices and disturbing the market. But I have to ask, why did you buy so many chicken seedlings? Hearing Li Zishuan's question, Qing Yaojin also pricked up his ears to listen to what Li Zishuan would say. He was also very curious. Li Zishuan's heart skipped a beat. The question he didn't want to answer the most had come. Chapter 89. Taiji Palace. Li Zishuan and the other officials all looked at Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan immediately felt the pressure. If he wanted to convince Li Zishuan, he had to think of a proper reason. He could not be as vague as he had been in front of Qing Chumo. Li Zishuan quickly searched for all kinds of suitable reasons in his mind. Suddenly, he had an idea. He stepped forward and bowed. He bowed and said, reporting to your Majesty, there are two main reasons why I bought so many chicken seedlings. First, I saw that my family's farmers were living in poverty. They didn't even have enough meat to eat twice a year. The children in the village might not even have new clothes to wear during the new year. So, by providing the farmers with chicken seedlings and reducing their annual rent, I asked them to help me raise the chickens. Moreover, the eggs that the chickens lay can be used to supplement their household expenses and improve their lives. Second, my family opened a restaurant called Drunken Immortal. A month ago, they released a chicken that was very popular with the people of Chang, and I presume that all the officials already know about it. Next year, I plan to release 128 dishes with chicken as the main ingredient. These include braised chicken, stewed chicken with mushrooms, beggar's chicken, roasted chicken, sliced hibiscus chicken, multicolored shredded chicken, crispy chicken, spicy chicken, kung pao chicken, boiled chicken, roasted chicken wings, fried chicken, salt-baked chicken, fragrant concubine chicken, sweet and sour chicken, 3-cup chicken wings, honey ginger chicken, apple pineapple chicken, 100-flower phoenix wings, white cut chicken, shredded chicken, cold shredded chicken, chicken skewers, iron plate chicken, chicken stir-fried rice, and so on. Li Zishuan quickly announced the names of the dishes in a fancy way. Qing Yaojin, Niu Jindao, Yu Qigong, and the other old generals listened with wide eyes. Although they had never eaten before, just hearing the names of these dishes made them salivate. This was especially true for the generals who had not eaten breakfast. It was almost noon and the court had not yet been dismissed. At this moment they were hungry. When they heard Li Zishuan's fancy list of dishes, they all stood where they were and swallowed hard. The civil officials were not much better. There were quite a few foodies among them. When they heard the names of these dishes that they had never heard of before, they closed their eyes and imagined how delicious these dishes would be. For a moment, the hall was filled with gulping sounds. Li Zishuan was also a little hungry after hearing what Li Zishuan said, but his mind was still clear. He frowned and asked, Li Zishuan, if you want to launch these famous dishes, you can just go to the East Market and buy chicken. Why do you have to go through so much trouble and raise chickens yourself? Li Zishuan was already prepared. He replied, Your Majesty, the dishes I mentioned have high requirements for the quality of the chicken. Previously, I had set up a very large chicken farm on the mountain behind my family's farmstead. The chickens that this humble one bought will all be raised on this mountain, allowing them to feed on the grass, insects, and rice bran on the mountain. Compared to the chickens raised by the villagers themselves, the free-range chickens on the mountain were more lively and active, and their ability to fly was stronger. This will lead to the compact muscle structure of free-range chickens, less fat, more fragrant taste, better nutrition, and better taste. In fact, there was one point that Li Zishuan did not mention in his heart. The free-range chickens could fly better, and their efficiency in catching locusts would naturally be higher. Li Zishuan had never raised chickens before. He was stunned by Li Zishuan's theory. In the end, he asked suspiciously, Are free-range chickens really as good as you say? Li Zishuan was still confident about this. He nodded and said, Your Majesty, it's absolutely true. Qing Yaojin swallowed his saliva and stepped forward to help. Your Majesty, I can testify about this. When I was still in Wagong village, I caught a few chickens that escaped from the villagers in the mountains. Those chicken wings were obviously longer, and the taste of the chicken was better. Li Er nodded and said, Well, Li Zishuan, you have passed the first test. How do you explain Minister Wei's impeachment of you? Li Zishuan first heard about Wei Jing from Han Yushi. He heard that he liked wine and was a master winemaker. On the other hand, there were many stories about Wei Jing and Li Er. In the end, Wei Jing became a famous minister and was ranked in the Lingyan Pavilion. Li Zishuan did not expect that the first time he met Wei Jing, he would be scolded by the Tang Dynasty's biggest troll. He turned around gloomily and looked at the civil officials, wanting to ask which one was Wei Jing. No need to ask. I am Wei Jing. What I said about the impeachment is true. What do you have to say? Wei Jing saw Li Zishuan looking at the civil officials again and knew that he was looking for him. He did not wait for Li Zishuan to ask and directly walked out. As the Tang Dynasty's #1 troll, when had he ever been afraid of anyone? Li Zishuan bowed respectfully. This junior greets Left Deputy Wei. This junior has a question. I wonder if Left Deputy Wei can answer this junior's question? What question? There's a blacksmith shop, and the kitchen knives they make are especially sharp. The world isn't peaceful, and many outlaws use this shop's kitchen knives to kill people and rob them. May I ask Left Prime Minister Wei, should the authorities punish the criminal or the blacksmith? Li Zishuan told Wei Zheng a story about whether it was a crime to kill or sell a knife. Wei Zheng said, "Of course, the murderer should be punished." Before he finished, he realized that something was wrong. Li Zishuan did not give him a chance to change his words. He smiled and said, "Minister Wei, you are right. The same logic applies to the scooter. Why would Minister Wei punish me? Children playing with scooters may be dangerous and may disturb the order in the city. But Minister Wei should not set the relevant laws and limit the places where scooters can be used. Why would you find trouble with me?" Wei Zheng was speechless. He could not think of a good excuse to refute. This kid is interesting. Zhang Sun Wuji had an inexplicable smile. He bowed to Li Zishuan and said, "Your Majesty, I think Li Zishuan's words are reasonable. The curious pavilion should not be guilty." "I agree. I agree." In an instant, the ministers in Zhang Sun Wuji's camp all agreed. The curious pavilion had 30% of the crown prince's shares. Li Chengqian had mentioned it to Zhang Sun Wuji many times. Currently, Zhang Sun Wuji was the most resolute supporter of the crown prince. Although the curious pavilion had nothing to do with the crown prince's foundation, if Wei Zheng's intention was to seal the curious pavilion, it would more or less damage the crown prince's reputation. Of course, Zhang Sun Wuji would definitely not be the vanguard. He only needed to deal the final blow when the situation was clear. Li Zishuan nodded. He didn't put these small matters to heart. He brought them out to give Wei Zheng some face and prevent himself from being implicated. He didn't expect Li Zishuan to be able to turn the situation around. This kid was rather quick-witted. Of course, seeing Wei Zheng being defeated, Li Zishuan was secretly happy. He held back his laughter and said, "Since that is the case, Li Zishuan is not guilty." Li Zishuan quickly bowed and thanked him. "Thank you, Your Majesty." At this moment, Li Zishuan let out a breath of relief. He looked at Zhang Sun Wuji and didn't know why this person was helping him. He had to ask Qing Yaojin later. The imperial court was indeed a little complicated. Li Zishuan felt a little tired. As expected, he wasn't suitable for this scheming officialdom. Chapter 90. The situation in the imperial court had suddenly changed. Li Zishuan, who was originally charged with 2 crimes, actually managed to resolve the dangerous situation with just a few words, allowing him to escape danger. This quick-wittedness and calmness did not seem like a brat who had just entered the imperial court for the first time. Qing Yaojin, Qin Shubao, Niu Jinda, and the others all looked at Li Zishuan with admiration. Li Er felt that everything should be fine now, so he asked, "Does anyone else have anything else to report?" Unexpectedly, someone actually stood up at this time. It was Yenlide. Yenlide's mood today was really full of twists and turns. He had originally planned to ask for credit for Li Zishuan at the beginning of the imperial court. Who knew that Li Zishuan would be impeached one after another? He could not understand. Li Zishuan was just a commoner. Why would the big shots in the imperial court have the time to impeach him? In the middle, he had thought of helping, but he had been obsessed with craftsmanship and architecture all his life. He was not good at scheming. What surprised him was that Li Zishuan had managed to turn the situation around by himself. Seeing that the situation was settled, he hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, this old subject has something to report." Li Er was just about to ask a casual question and then prepare to dismiss the imperial court. Today's imperial court had been going on for a long time. He did not expect Yenlide to have something to report. Li Er pulled himself together and asked, "What is it, Yenlide?" "Your Majesty, This old subject wants to ask for credit for Li Zixuan. Oh! Li Er was energized. Today's imperial court had been very interesting. Li Zixuan, a commoner, had almost become the main character of this imperial court. Yen lied, what credit does Li Zixuan have? Li Er asked with interest. The other ministers also looked curiously at this young man. Your Majesty, Li Zixuan invented a new component a few days ago called a roller bearing. This object can be installed at the connection points of all machinery and can greatly reduce resistance. Currently, he has developed it and used it on carriages. Compared to the carriages with traditional bearings, this new type of carriage was more agile and had less resistance. After testing by the craftsmen who will supervise the construction, under the same amount of animal power, the new type of carriage can carry more than 80% of the goods. It is extremely beneficial for transporting provisions when two armies are at war. Oh, is there such a thing? Li Er stood up excitedly. He had fought in wars for more than 10 years and knew the importance of efficiency. Replying to Imperial Father, there is indeed such a matter. When I first partnered with Li Zixuan to establish the Strange Interest Pavilion, he had already proposed the concept of roller bearings, and it was also approved by Minister Yan's son, Yan Xiaoning. At this moment, Li Chengqian jumped out to support his good friend. Li Er looked at Li Zixuan and then looked at Li Zixuan. He laughed and said, Good, good, good. Li Zixuan, we didn't think that you would be so talented at such a young age. You should be rewarded. Yen Lied continued. Your Majesty, I'm not done yet. 3 days ago, Li Zixuan invented a new type of plow called the curved shaft plow and produced a batch yesterday. Not only does this plow save more energy, it is also more agile. After testing it yesterday, it has been proven that the curved shaft plow is at least 3 times faster than the long shaft plow we used before. I believe that the imperial court should promote the curved shaft plow to solve the problem of the lack of cattle in Tang. Emperor Li Er, who had always been calm, could not remain calm at this moment. He said in disbelief, Official Yen, is there really such a magical plow in this world? Yen Lied bowed and said, Your Majesty, I am willing to guarantee with my life that this is absolutely true. Qing Yaojin also stepped forward and said, Your Majesty, I can also guarantee. Yesterday, my family's Chonyo also went with Li Zixuan to the farmstead. He also saw it with his own eyes. This curved shaft plow is indeed faster and saves more energy. Even a man with slightly more strength can pull it. Hisk, as soon as Qing Yaojin finished speaking, the officials in the imperial court immediately became excited, and all of them gasped. Previously, Yen Lied had said so much, but many of them did not have a direct understanding of the curved shaft plow. Now that Qing Yaojin said that people could actually pull the plow to plow the land, they were instantly shocked. To them, pulling pears to plow the land was simply a fantasy. Was this curved shaft plow really that magical? Li Er also felt that Qing Yaojin's words were a bit exaggerated. He looked at Li Zixuan and asked, Li Zixuan, is this curved shaft plow really that magical? Just now, when Yen Lied came out and said that he wanted to claim credit for himself, Li Zixuan was a little dumbfounded. Coming to Taiji Palace today was really like riding a roller coaster, with ups and downs. It was King exciting. Li Zixuan took a long time to react. When he heard Li Er's question, he quickly replied, Your Majesty, it is true. Yesterday, hundreds of villagers in the Han village witnessed the speed of the curved shaft plow with their own eyes. I dare not hide anything. Also, the Chitsu Pavilion Workshop has already started to produce the curved shaft plow. There will be more and more villagers who will be able to use the curved shaft plow. At that time, more people will know the superiority of the curved shaft plow. Good. Li Er could not help but say good. These days, he had been worried about the problems of the villages around Chang and for the spring plowing. He originally planned to transfer cattle from the north, but who knew that he would be robbed by bandits on the way. When he received the news, Li'er was so angry that his nose was crooked. However, he did not have the time to deal with the bandits because the spring plowing period was almost over. He had to hurry and transfer cattle from other places. These days, Li'er was really sullen. Now that Li Zishuan had invented the more efficient curved shaft plow, all these problems were solved. Moreover, this thing could be regarded as a divine tool that benefited the country and the people. It was really too important. Li'er, who had been sullen for a few days, could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Can this curved shaft plow be mass-produced? Li'er was not overly excited. He knew that time was tight. The villagers were anxious for the spring plowing. Li Zishuan replied, "Your Majesty, the structure of the curved shaft plow is not complicated. My workshop can make 100 or 200 of them in a day. However, the villagers are anxious for the spring plowing. My personal ability is limited and cannot satisfy the needs of all the villagers in a short time. I am willing to give the blueprint of the curved shaft plow to the imperial court and let them make it. This way, the villagers will not miss the spring plowing as soon as possible." Firstly, the curved shaft plow did not make much money. Secondly, Li Zishuan did not have the ability to produce a large number of curved shaft plows at once. It would delay the spring plowing of many villagers. It seemed that it was better to give it to the imperial court. Li'er laughed and said, "You are quite righteous. Not bad, not bad. Yen lied, this matter will be handed over to your Ministry of Works. During this time, order all the craftsmen to work overtime and rush out a batch of curved shaft plow." Yen lied quickly cupped his hands and said, "Yes, Your Majesty. I will personally supervise." That would be best. But I will have to trouble you." Li'er nodded and smiled. Chapter 91. Inside the Taiji Palace. After Li'er finished explaining to Yenlide, he looked at Li Zishuan with mixed feelings. He had originally planned to transfer Li Zishuan into the army and nurture him. He never expected Li Zishuan to be so talented in machinery. Could it be that priest Spirit Void taught him all this? The roller bearings were indeed very useful. Li'er also planned to reward Li Zishuan with some gold and silver as a reward. However, the significance of the curved plow was too great. It was not an exaggeration to say that its merits were in the present and its benefits were in the future. In a feudal society, the rulers attached great importance to agriculture. If he only rewarded some gold and silver for this merit, it would seem that Li'er was stingy. Li'er pondered for a moment and said to Li Zishuan, "I heard from Jijia that you learned martial arts from Priest Spirit Void when you were a child. Recently, you even created a strange object like the roller bearings. This is one merit. Today, you presented the technique of making the curved plow, so that countless farmers would not miss out on the spring plowing. Your merits are in the country and its benefits are in the future. I am very grateful. This is the second merit. In the imperial court, rewarding merits and punishing faults, making the best use of people's talents, this is the right that the heavens have bestowed upon me. It is also my life's ambition. Li Zishuan, tell me, what do you want? I will satisfy you." Damn, as long as one's IQ was not lacking, they would be able to tell that there was a trap in Li'er's words. "If you really want to reward me, why don't you just say it out loud? Why do you need me to say it myself? If I say too much, you'll definitely be unhappy. If I say too little, won't I suffer a huge loss?" Li Zishuan thought for a moment and simply pushed the question to Li'er. "Your Majesty, my livelihood is in the Tang Empire. I have already deeply fallen in love with this land. These small contributions are what I should do. I really do not dare to covet your Majesty's reward." When Cheng Yaojin heard this, he anxiously glared at Li Zishuan from the side. He secretly cursed that his brain was rusty. He actually did not want to reward such a good opportunity. Li'er frowned and said, "How can I not reward a merit? If this were to spread out, how would the commoners view me? How about this, Li Zishuan? Are you willing to work under Minister Yen at the Ministry of Works? Yen Lide's eyes lit up. He also had the same idea. With Li Zixuan's talent, it would be a pity if he didn't join the Ministry of Works. Li Zixuan immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. He didn't want to enter the imperial court and fight for power. Looking at the fate of Zhangsun Wuji, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, Wei Zheng, and the others who fought bravely in Zhen Guan's court, according to the records of later generations, these people committed suicide, had their properties confiscated, their families exterminated, and their corpses whipped. These people were all godlike figures, and they couldn't avoid a tragic end. As a newbie in the bureaucracy, it was better for him to shrink his head and be an honest tortoise. Making a fortune in silence was the right thing to do. It would be best if he could get a position with a high rank, less responsibility, and no management. If he went to the Ministry of Works, not only would he suffer, but if he offended someone, he would probably fall into a trap. He was very envious of Qing Yaojin's unscrupulous personality. He often made a scene in the imperial court, making everyone think that he was a simple-minded boor. As long as they didn't provoke him, he would be harmless to them. Therefore, he was able to be a free and unfettered duke during Zhen Guan's reign. This was why he was so awesome. Great wisdom disguised as stupidity. He never showed his talents, but he lived for 100 years. After his death, he was conferred the title of longevity Lu Wang. He lived a rich life and survived 4 emperors. He could be said to be a weirdo in the bureaucracy. Li Zixuan saw Li Er's glare and quickly considered his words before explaining, "Your Majesty, I'm used to being lazy. I'm afraid that going to the Ministry of Works will delay Minister Yan's matters. Moreover, I've been away from home for 8 years and finally returned home. I want to be filial to my parents. Your Majesty, please grant my wish." Well, the banner of filial piety was brought out. What else could Li Er say? Even if he was the emperor, he didn't dare to openly disobey filial piety. Li Er pondered for a while and said, "If that's the case, then forget it. However, you have contributed to the country and can't not be rewarded. How about this? I'll confer you the title of Lantian County Baron and give you 200 households. How about that?" Li Er had spent a lot of money. Everyone in the imperial court was shocked. The imperial court's nobility was divided into 5 ranks: Duke, Marquis, Count, Viscount, and Baron. Li Zixuan was conferred the title of Baron this time. It was a leap from a commoner to a lord. Under the general trend of the country, the conferment of nobility was extremely cautious. The entire imperial court was thinking about how to reduce the number of nobles and reduce the rank of nobility. Li Zixuan was actually conferred the title of Baron with a mere curved plough. Qing Yaojin hurriedly gave Li Zixuan a look, telling him to quickly agree. He was really afraid that Li Zixuan would be stupid and refuse again. Li Zixuan didn't pay attention to Qing Yaojin's message. However, when he heard Li Er's words, he was overjoyed. He thought to himself that he had leaped from a commoner to a noble. There was no reason for him to refuse. He hurriedly bowed and thanked the emperor. "I thank your Majesty for your kindness." Li Er nodded with satisfaction and said, "If there's nothing else, the imperial court is dismissed." All the ministers bowed and saluted. "We respectfully send your Majesty off." "Haha, this old man really didn't misjudge you. You're promising." As soon as they left Taiji Palace, Qing Yaojin excitedly patted Li Zixuan's shoulder and laughed. After that, he looked at Qin Shu Bao and smiled proudly. "How is it, Brother Qin? I told you before that this kid isn't a fish in a pond, right? Haha, old Qing, have a good eye for people." Qin Shu Bao laughed and shook his head. He looked at Li Zixuan and said, "This old man heard from Jijie that your master is spiritual master Ling Su. Your martial arts are excellent and not below Jijie. However, I didn't expect you to be able to make such a thing that benefits the country and the people. His Majesty has granted you the title of Baron. Since you are greatly indebted to the country, you should serve the country well in the future. However, this old man has no chance to meet such an immortal like your master. It is a great regret in my life." When Li Zishuan heard Qing Yaojin call the person in front of him as Brother Qin, he had already guessed the identity of this person. At this time, when he heard Qin Xiong instructing him in the tone of an elder, Li Zishuan knew that he was treating him as a nephew for the sake of Qing Yaojin. He was moved and bowed respectfully to Qin Xiong. "This must be great General Qin. In the past, when I was in the mountains, I often heard my master say that General Qin seized 3 passes in the day and 8 strongholds at night. Your martial arts are rare in the world, and you are the first pillar of our Tang Empire. I will remember General Qin's teachings and will not forget His Majesty's kindness." Qin Shu Bao was somewhat delighted. "I didn't expect your master to know this old man. Haha, this old man will call you Shao Xian for the time being. Since Jijie regards you as his nephew, you should also call this old man uncle to avoid estrangement." Li Zishuan hurriedly went along with it and called out to Uncle Qin. Qing Yaojin looked at Qin Xiong's sallow face and sighed. "Alas, little Xian, it would be good if your master was still here." In the past, everyone in Jianghu knew that spiritual master Ling Su not only had great achievements, but also had great medical skills. He was not below Dr. Sunday. If he was still here, he might be able to cure Brother Qin's illness. When Li Zishuan heard this, he also looked at the unparalleled hero in front of him. Now, he was stooping and coughing from time to time, thinking that according to the track of history, this old man probably only had less than 10 years to live. He was really a hero past his prime. For a moment, Li Zishuan's eyes were also a little wet. Qin Xiong waved his hand magnanimously and said with a faint smile, "Jijie, you are thinking too much. Life and death are predestined. Riches and honor are in heaven. I have been in the military all my life and killed countless people. Perhaps this is the retribution that I, Qin Xiong, should suffer." Chapter 92. In front of the stairs outside the Taiji Palace. Hearing Qin Shubao's words, Qing Yaojin's eyes instantly turned red. "How can you say that? If there is really retribution, then I have killed as many people as you. The one who deserves to die the most is me." Qin Xiong scolded, "Jijie, you are already so old. Why are you still acting like a child? Don't let the younger generation see you as a joke. I really don't care about it. If I can see the Tang Empire in peace and the people living and working in peace in my lifetime, I will be satisfied." Li Zishuan said at this time, "Uncle Qin, why don't you ask Dr. Sun to take a look? My master also praised Dr. Sun's medical skills when he was alive. I think Uncle Qin just has a lot of internal injuries. Dr. Sun should treat you a little." Qing Yaojin's eyes lit up and he cried, "By the way, His Majesty told me before that he would send Dr. Sun to the Qin mansion to take a look at my second brother these days." "Second brother, you can't go out these days." Qin Xiong nodded with a smile. Li Zishuan thought for a moment and said, "If Dr. Sun goes to the Qin mansion, please send someone to tell me. I was lucky to be saved by Dr. Sun in the Zhongnan Mountains. I haven't thanked him in person." Li Zishuan thought that he could ask Sun Simiao to take a look at Hu Jing and his brother. Qin Xiong nodded. At this time, Qing Yaojin pulled Li Zishuan and said, "Come, little Xian, this old man will introduce you to the elders. These are all good brothers who have gone through life and death with this old man. You should pay your respects." Li Zishuan hurriedly said yes and followed Qing Yaojin's footsteps to the people walking in front. "Old fool Yuqi, Niu Sanlang, you two wait." Qing Yaojin shouted at the top of his voice from a distance. The 2 big men in front immediately stopped, turned around and glared at Qing Yaojin. "Madman Qing, in the next competition, I must beat your stinky mouth crooked. You don't pay attention to the demeanor of an elder in front of the younger generation and talk nonsense." one of the ugly towering men said to Qing Yaojin unhappily. Qing Yaojin chuckled. Haha, wait till you can beat me, old Qing. Little Xian, come here, let me introduce you to two elders. This is your Uncle Yuqi. His kung fu is only a little bit worse than this old man's, but it's not bad. Li Zishuan ignored the shameless Qing Yaojin at the side and hurriedly bowed respectfully to one of the later generation's door gods, Yuqi Jingda, and said, "Greetings to Uncle Yuqi. This young one, Li Zishuan, pays respects to you." After Yuqi Jingda glared at Qing Yaojin, he hurriedly helped Li Zishuan up and laughed. Good, good, good. You're quite handsome. But for us men, it's useless to be handsome. You have to be able to pick up a sword and go on the battlefield. Previously, Madman Qing said that you were actually able to fight him to a draw. You should spar with this old man some other day. Let's see if you are as powerful as Madman Qing said. Li Zishuan almost vomited blood. Was Yuqi Jingda saying that he looked like a pretty boy? But compared to Yuqi Jingda, this tower-like man, his appearance was indeed a bit fair. Qing Yaojin said sarcastically, if everyone looked like a charcoal ball like you, whose family's daughter would dare to marry? Other than your two sisters-in-law, black and white, who blindly took a fancy to you, wouldn't other girls jump into a well if they saw your king of hell appearance? Yuqi Jingda was furious. Cursing people but not exposing their shortcomings, Qing Yaojin's words were too King wicked. Madman Qing, you old thing, your mouth doesn't speak human language. Come and fight 300 rounds with this old man. As he spoke, he was about to go up and fight. On the side, Nyo Jinda hurriedly pulled him back. The younger generation is still here. What's with the two of you messing around like this? At this time, Qing Yaojin chuckled and pulled Li Zishuan over. Pointing at the dark-skinned, muscular man who was pulling Yuqi Jingda, he introduced, "This is your Uncle Nyo. In the past, we went through fire and water together many times. His battle formation skills are quite exceptional. You, kid, must follow him and learn well." Of course, Li Zishuan had heard of Nyo Jinda's great name. This was one of the few fierce generals of the great Tang. Li Zishuan respectfully bowed and said, "Greetings, Uncle Nyo." Nyo Jinda was obviously more composed than Qing Yaojin and Yuqi Jingda. He twirled his beard and smiled. "Good kid, no need to be so polite. You are truly a young talent. You were able to invent the curved plow, so you can be considered the great benefactor of all the farmers in the world. Old Nyo was also a farmer in the past. I know the severity of missing the spring plowing. With your curved plow, who knows how many fewer people will starve to death." Li Zishuan hurriedly said modestly, "Uncle Nyo, you flatter me. I was just fooling around." Qing Yaojin came over and said, "Little Xian, you said before that you raised chickens to supply your restaurant with new dishes. Is that true?" Li Zishuan nodded and said, "That's true." Qing Yaojin slapped his thigh and shouted, "Then this time, my family raised 30,000 chickens with you. When the time comes, you will have to take them all. Old Qing, have really invested a lot this time." Li Zishuan widened his eyes. He did not expect Qing Yaojin to trust him so much that he directly wanted to raise 30,000 chickens. This was such a big gamble. But this was also good. When the time came, the Qing family's farm would not have to fear the plague of locusts. Thinking of this, Li Zishuan smiled meaningfully and said, "Uncle Qing, when the time comes, you may find that the most precious part of your chickens is not the meat. You may not be willing to sell your chickens." "What do you mean?" Qing Yaojin was confused. Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. Uncle Qing will naturally know when the time comes. Li Zishuan said with a smile. Yuqi Jingda could not help but scold Qing Yaojin. "You shameless old man, you actually want to take advantage of the younger generation. You've really lived like a dog all these years. Little Xian, you don't need to pay attention to him. This old man is actually very interested in the 128 new dishes that your drunken immortal restaurant will release next year. When the time comes, you have to let this old man taste them in advance. Yes, this old bull is also interested in these new dishes. The chicken that your drunken immortal restaurant released before is really the most delicious thing this old bull has ever eaten. When the new dishes come out, you have to send some to this old man to taste in advance. Li Zichuan hurriedly nodded and agreed. Two uncles, don't worry. When the time comes, I will definitely send some to your residences. And this old man, you can't forget the old when you have a new person. Cheng Yaojin immediately jumped out and added. Qin Xiong, who had just rushed over, was speechless. Jijia, how come you don't know how to pay attention to the demeanor of an elder at all? Inside the imperial palace. Your Majesty, I heard that you conferred Li Zichuan the title of Baron today? Empress Zhongsun asked curiously as she fed Li Er, who was lying on her lap, a piece of apple that she had cut. Li Er smiled gently and said, What? Does Guanin's servant think that my reward is inappropriate? Zhongsun hurriedly said, I wouldn't dare. I was just asking casually. Li Er sighed. Perhaps many people think that my reward is a bit too heavy. Haha, but how many people in the world know Li Zichuan's true value? This kid is far from being as simple as you think. We even suspect that what he said in court today about the reason he raised so many chickens was not the truth. After court was dismissed, I thought about it carefully and felt that there was something else going on. There seems to be something that doesn't make sense. It had to be said that Li Er's eyes were very sharp. He was almost close to the correct answer. Zhang Sun didn't understand and asked, I heard Cheng Qian say before that Li Zichuan invented the gnawing chicken and wrote Journey to the West. Now, this book has spread throughout the palace. However, this child is only 14 years old. Is he really worth a baron? Li Er stood up and frowned with his hands behind his back. Actually, Li Zichuan's identity as spiritual master Ling Su's disciple is also worth a baron. Guanin's servant, you might not know what kind of immortal spiritual master Ling Su is. His disciple definitely won't be bad. I originally planned to send Li Zichuan to the army to gain experience, but today I found that this kid is very lazy. He has a lot of ability, but he would rather stay at home and wait for death. I might as well give him a baron first and drag him into court first. I will give him a good beating in the future. Jade can't be made into anything without being polished. I don't believe that this kid is so useless that he can't be helped up. Chapter 93. After bidding farewell to Cheng Yaojin and the other old generals, it was already past noon. The morning court session had been going on for so long, but Li Zichuan didn't provide any food. He really wasn't a good boss. Li Zichuan could only go home hungry. Xian'er, are you all right? Why did His Majesty look for you? He didn't give you any trouble, did he? As soon as he entered the door, Madame Li ran over and hugged Li Zichuan. Her two eyes constantly looked at Li Zichuan's body to see if her son was missing any parts. Li Jingma also stood not far away and looked over with concern. It was obvious that the husband and wife had been waiting in the courtyard for him to come back. They probably hadn't even eaten lunch yet. Brother, are you all right? When Lan heard the commotion in the courtyard, she ran out with her little legs. Behind her was a worried Tai Dan. Li Zichuan looked at the worried faces of his family members and couldn't help but feel a surge of warmth in his heart. Although he hadn't been in this world for long, he had received too much love and care from this small family. Mother, I'm fine. His Majesty didn't make things difficult for me. Let's go in and eat lunch. I haven't eaten yet. Front hall. Li Zichuan briefly told the two elders about what happened in the morning court session as he ate. Of course, he didn't mention the matter of Yuan Wendao and Wei Jing impeaching him. Since it was already in the past, there was no need to mention it and make everyone worry. Even so, the few people in the family were so shocked that their jaws dropped. Xian'er, you're saying that His Majesty made you a baron? Madame Li excitedly pulled Li Zixuan's arm and asked in disbelief. Li Jingma was also a little short of breath. He had been in business for many years and knew how lowly a merchant's position was. If what his son said was true, then who would dare to look down on him, Li Jingma? Li Zixuan's mouth was still stuffed. Seeing his mother constantly urging him, he hurriedly said, "It's true, mother. The imperial edict will probably be sent over in the afternoon. It's just that Lantian County is so big, I wonder where my fief will be? Who cares where he is? You brat, don't take it for granted. This title is the most important. Our family doesn't lack land. Hurry up and eat. You still have to receive the imperial edict in the afternoon." Li Jingma grumbled from the side. In fact, he was more excited than anyone else. His son had gone from a commoner to a baron. When the time came, the entire Li family would rise along with him. They would not be far from becoming a wealthy family. It was just that he couldn't bear to see Li Zixuan act like he was the victim of a bargain, so he couldn't help but say a few words. "Dad, aren't you going to the shop in the afternoon?" Li Zixuan asked curiously. In the past, at this time, Dad Li would usually be busy with his business. Li Jingma glared at him and said, "Why do you still care about business at a time like this? Do you think your father is as clueless as you?" Li Zixuan rubbed his nose awkwardly. "Wow, then Lan will be the baron's sister in the future. Does that mean she's also a high-ranking official?" Lan cheered at this time. Madame Li couldn't help but laugh and said, "Yes, yes, yes. Our Lan will also be a high-ranking official in the future." Iron Egg congratulates Master on receiving the title of Baron. Iron Egg at the side also very sensibly bowed and congratulated him. Li Zixuan smiled and nodded. He asked casually, "Iron Egg, have you been slacking off these few days? How many words have you learned?" Lan rushed to say, "Brother, with Lan here, Brother Iron Egg doesn't dare to slack off. Lan has already taught Iron Egg more than 100 words these few days." Li Zixuan praised, "Not bad. In a few days I'll invite a teacher back. Lan you should also learn some scriptures from Iron Egg. I don't expect you to become a scholar through scriptures, but I hope you can understand some principles of life from them." Why does Lan have to learn too? Lan pouted her small mouth and said unwillingly. Li Jingma and his wife watched the siblings bicker and didn't interrupt. Since Li Zixuan returned, Lan didn't need to worry about them anymore. After the meal, Li Zixuan was urged by his mother to go back to the west courtyard to take a bath. She said that to receive the imperial edict, one had to take a bath and change clothes in advance to show respect to the emperor. Li Zixuan snorted at this, but there was nothing he could do. This era's deep-rooted ideology of imperial power was supreme, and no one could change it. After taking a bath, Li Zixuan saw his mother's head maid, Qing trot over and say, young master, young master. Young master, young master, master and madam want you to hurry to the front yard. Has the angel arrived?" Li Zixuan said in surprise, "So fast? Then let's go quickly." When Li Zixuan arrived at the front courtyard, he saw that the incense table had been set up. Li Jingma was chatting with a middle-aged man with a pale face and no beard. When he saw Li Zixuan, he quickly waved for him to come over. "Xian quickly come and say hello to Chamberlain Lu." Li Zixuan walked over and cupped his hands. "Greetings, Chamberlain Lu. You've worked hard to come here to announce the imperial edict." The eunuch smiled and returned the greeting. He said in a sharp voice, "This must be young Master Li. You're really young and talented. To be recognized by the emperor at such a young age, you have a bright future ahead of you. Young Master Li, you should hurry and receive the imperial edict." When he finished speaking, the eunuch stood facing the south with his back facing the north. Li Zixuan, Li Jingma, and the others also cupped their hands at the side. Chamberlain Lu coughed softly. "The emperor of the Tang Dynasty has decreed that there is a good son named Li Zixuan. Since he was young, He has been adhering to the virtues of good. He created roller bearings, created the divine plough. The eunuch recited the edict for the time it took to drink a cup of tea. Other than the beginning, Li Zishuan didn't understand what the ancient text was saying. He finally heard the words roller bearings and divine plough, which should be praising his achievements. Then, he heard the words male of Lantian County. This is my title. But where is my fief? Didn't they say that there were 200 households in the fief? There should be 2,000 or 3,000 mu of land, right? Why didn't he hear anything? When Chamberlain Lu finished reciting, Li Jingma pressed Li Zishuan to the ground and kowtowed 3 times and 9 times. The eunuch smiled and said, "Congratulations, Lord Ju. You have been conferred the title of male at the age of 14. The day you become a marquis is just around the corner." When he finished speaking, his eyes were fixed on Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan's hair stood on end under the eunuch's gaze. He didn't know what was going on, but Li Jingma knew better. He quickly had someone bring over a tray with a dozen golden pancakes. Li Zishuan was speechless. He secretly praised his father for being so generous. At the same time, he also understood that the eunuch was trying to get money. He was still too inexperienced. Luckily, he had his father by his side to take care of him. It was true that having an old man at home was like having a treasure. Li Jingma handed the tray to Chamberlain Lu. He smiled and said, "Both of us are extremely grateful to have Chamberlain Lu deliver the edict. Now that we have received such good news, how can we let Chamberlain Lu return empty-handed? This is a small token of our appreciation. I hope Chamberlain Lu doesn't mind." Chamberlain Lu smiled and took the tray. He bowed to Li Zishuan and said, "Thank you, Lord Ju, for your reward." Li Zishuan nodded. This Tang Dynasty eunuch wasn't bad. However, he was most concerned about where his fief was. Chapter 94. After the eunuch left, the Li residence became a sea of joy. Li Jingma and his wife held the imperial edict and flipped it over and over. From time to time, they would whisper and laugh. Their joy was evident in their words. Li Zishuan estimated that if there was an ant on top of the imperial edict, Li Jingma would be able to catch it. "Father, have you seen enough?" His parents had been looking at it for almost an hour. Li Zishuan couldn't take it anymore. "What, your mother and I raised you. Now that you've finally made a name for yourself, why can't you look at it more?" Father Li was unusually happy today. It was rare that he didn't scold Li Zishuan. When Li Zishuan said that he was going to be knighted, Father Li was excited. However, he was still worried that something might happen. Now that the imperial edict was in his hands, Father Li's heart was finally at ease. He could laugh out loud. No, Father, Mother, you can look as long as you want. I just want to ask, where is my fief?" Li Zishuan scratched his head awkwardly. Who told him to not study Chinese? He didn't understand the imperial edict just now. He was at a disadvantage because of his lack of knowledge. Father Li glared at Li Zishuan. "Ignorant and incompetent. You can't even understand the imperial edict. Didn't Lu just tell you the location of your fief? You also said that you wanted to find a teacher for Lan. I think you need a teacher to teach you." Li Zishuan was very embarrassed. Madame Li covered her mouth and laughed. "Xian, why are you so concerned about your fief? Coincidentally, according to His Majesty's edict, your fief is about 2,000 mu of fertile farmland in Plum Village in Lantian County. It's not far from the Han family village." Ignoring his father's scolding, Li Zishuan heard his mother's words. He opened his mouth in shock and asked, "Plum Village's farmland? Didn't Lu Shuren buy it?" Li Jingma snorted. "He spent money to buy it, but that doesn't mean it's his. If the imperial court wants to take it back, would he dare to not hand it over? However, the imperial court will also give him some compensation." Li Zishuan also knew that Lan had been bullied in the Han family manor. If it wasn't for the fact that Li Zixuan had already punished Lu Haojin severely, Li Jingma would have gotten someone to do it himself. Li Zixuan nodded in understanding and asked, "Father, then if the imperial court wants to take away our Han family manors land in the future, will it be like Lu Shuren now?" Li Jingma nodded. "In theory, that's true. However, Xian'er, you're already a baron. As long as you don't commit any crimes, the imperial court shouldn't casually take away the Han manors land. As far as I know, all the civil and military officials in the court basically spend money to buy some land in other places other than their own fief. His Majesty usually doesn't take away their land. So that's how it is. In that case, I'll be in charge of 2 farmsteads in the future. That's more than 5,000 mu of land. I'll have to link the 2 farmsteads together and build a new feudal village." Haha, Li Zixuan thought happily. In a private room on the top floor of the Yunxi restaurant, a young master was holding a wine cup and sipping wine while looking down at the pedestrians on the street. A soft sound came from the door. Then, a middle-aged scholar in black carefully walked in and respectfully said to the young master, "Second young master, Without waiting for him to finish, the young master didn't even turn his head. A cold aura suddenly filled the room. Even though the middle-aged scholar couldn't see the young master's expression, he knew that he had said something wrong. He quickly slapped himself and corrected himself. "Young master." The young master then asked, "How did it go? Did Yuan Wendao's impeachment succeed?" The middle-aged man in black didn't dare to raise his head and whispered, "Young master, Yuan Wendao's impeachment failed. Li Zixuan was instead made a baron by His Majesty." What a piece of trash. The young master slammed the table and snorted angrily. "Please forgive me, young master." The man in black immediately kept quiet out of fear and quickly knelt down to beg for mercy. After a while, the young master picked up his wine cup and took a sip of wine. He said lightly, "Tell me, what happened?" The black-clothed man then reported in full detail how Li Zixuan had rebutted Yuan Wendao and Wei Zheng's impeachment during the morning court assembly. After listening to the story, the young master closed his eyes and meditated for a long time before muttering to himself, "Oh, I didn't expect that Li Zixuan not only escaped this disaster, but also benefited from it. It's like this kid was sent by the heavens to go against me. Half a month ago, when I was sent to take over Yunxi restaurant, that kid pushed out the chicken he ate at Drunken Immortal restaurant. At first, I thought he was just an ant and could easily kill him. I didn't expect that he would soon become friends with Qing Chumo and the Crown Prince. The ant turned into a grasshopper and had the strength to fight. And now, he was unexpectedly made a baron. This grasshopper turned into a tiger and had its own teeth. Things are getting more and more interesting, ha." The middle-aged man in black was ashamed. "It's my fault. Please punish me, young master." "Is there any use in punishing you? This young master will remember this matter. If you fail again, don't come back to see me." The middle-aged man in black hurriedly said, "Don't worry, young master. There won't be a next time." The young master nodded and asked, "Is Wang Eru still unwilling to come to Yunxi restaurant?" Reporting to young master, this subordinate offered twice the monthly salary of Drunken Immortal restaurant, but Wang Eru is still unwilling to come. "Young master, this person doesn't know how to appreciate favors. Should this subordinate send someone to teach him a lesson?" The young master shook his head. "Times are different now. Now that Li Zixuan has been made a baron, if we go overboard, it'll be easy to expose ourselves. Besides, even if we get Wang Eru to our Yunxi restaurant, Li Zixuan can still train a second Wang Eru. To me, Yunxi restaurant's business doesn't matter, but this young master isn't willing to lose to that person." The middle-aged man in black didn't dare to reply. The room fell into silence. After a short moment, the young master spoke and asked, "How many customers have we robbed from the Drunken Immortal restaurant?" The middle-aged man pondered for a few breaths of time and answered, "About 30 to 40%, but I heard that the Drunken Immortal restaurant has started to lower their prices. Then we'll lower our prices as well. That's right. Did Li Zishuan explain why he bought so many chicken seedlings during the morning court assembly? The young master suddenly thought of something and asked. Reporting to young master, Li Zishuan said that he's raising so many chickens for the farmers to subsidize their expenses. Secondly, it's for the 128 chicken banquet that his Drunken Immortal restaurant is going to launch next year. It's said that their new dish requires free-range chickens. Humph. Do you believe that? The young master thought for a moment and snorted disdainfully. Young master, this lowly one feels that Li Zishuan's words are quite reasonable. The middle-aged man scratched his head and spoke in bewilderment. You're a pig's head. Although I can't guess his true objective, I'm sure it's not just for this. Moreover, I don't think the emperor will believe it. Also, what's that good big brother of mine doing recently? The young master first mocked the middle-aged man and then suddenly asked. He deliberately emphasized the words good big brother. Reporting to young master, the eldest young master hasn't made any moves recently. However, the eldest young master spent 500 strings of coins at the Strange Taste Pavilion yesterday to apply for a Red Supreme membership card. This lowly one doesn't know what the eldest young master's intentions are. The middle-aged man replied respectfully. This good big brother of mine is probably interested in my sworn enemy, isn't he? The young master snorted coldly and the room fell into silence again. Chapter 95. From tomorrow onwards, he would be a happy person. He would feed the horses, chop firewood, and travel around the world. From tomorrow onwards, he would care about food and vegetables. He would have a house that faced the sea. He would have a house, land, and a title. He would finally have a place to settle down in the Tang Dynasty. Thinking about this, Li Zishuan felt extremely relaxed. He lay on the bed and did not want to get up. He even wanted to spend the rest of his life eating and waiting for death. After all, he would not be able to use up all the money at home. That's right, Li Zishuan had no ambition and was content with his wealth. What was the point of earning so much money? He was not going to raise a flag or gather people to rebel. The money at home was enough for him to use for a few lifetimes. Young master, it should be Lord Ju. It's time to get up. Xiao Shi entered the room and said with a face full of smiles. It was just that she was not used to being called Lord Ju. The little girl realized that she had said something wrong and was a little flustered. However, the joy in her eyes could not be hidden. Li Zishuan teased, Xiao Shi, what's the occasion today? Why are you so happy? No, nothing. Xiao Shi was a little flustered as she gathered the hair in front of her forehead. Hey, if you don't say it, I won't get up today. Originally, it was just a casual question. However, looking at the little girl's expression, it was obvious that something was wrong. Li Zishuan acted shamelessly. Young Lord Ju, how can you be like this? Xiao Shi had a new understanding of her young master's shamelessness. Li Zishuan was speechless at the little girl's exaggerated reaction. He was just teasing her and did not act like a hooligan. If you are not used to being called Lord Ju, then continue to call me young master. I feel uncomfortable hearing it. Xiao Shi, tell me quickly. What good thing did you encounter? Did you pick up some money? Xiao Shi hesitated for a moment before saying embarrassedly, Madam said this morning that all the servants in the residence will have their allowance doubled for the next 3 months to celebrate young master's conferment. Ha, Xiao Shi, you really picked up some money. Half of your extra allowance is due to me. Xiao Shi, you have to thank me. Xiao Shi also felt that the young master's analysis made sense, but she couldn't think of how to thank him. She said awkwardly, Young master, you don't lack anything. Xiao Shi can't think of how to thank you. Hearing this, Li Zishuan said sneakily, Who said that I, your young master, don't lack anything? I've lacked calcium since I was young, and I've lacked love when I grew up. After he finished speaking, He stared at the little girl's small chest with some bad intentions. Tsk, it was really quite big, ah. Young master, you rogue. Xiao, she could feel Li Zixuan's perverted gaze. She screamed and ran away while covering her face. Sigh, this little girl really can't handle teasing. Li Zixuan shook his head helplessly. He could only get up and put on his clothes. Shopkeeper Lu is here today? Li Zixuan went to the front hall and was about to eat breakfast when he saw Shopkeeper Lu talking to Old Man Li. Greetings to Lord Zhu. Congratulations to Lord Zhu for your bright future. Shopkeeper Lu didn't dare to be as casual as before. When he saw Li Zixuan enter, he quickly stood up and respectfully bowed to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan's current status was different from before. He couldn't be disrespectful. Uncle Lu, in any case, we've worked together before. Why are you acting so distant now? Uncle Lu, you should just call me young master or little Xian. There's no need to be reserved. My father and I remember the contributions you've made to the Drunken Immortal Inn. Li Zixuan could clearly feel that Shopkeeper Lu's attitude wasn't right today. However, he understood after thinking about it. He wasn't someone who liked to put on airs. Although he had a noble title now, to him, this title was just a coat to protect himself and his family. It wasn't a tool to put on airs. When Shopkeeper Lu saw that Li Zixuan's attitude towards him was still as cordial as before, he was very touched. One had to know how lowly merchants were in this society. Which noble would be willing to treat them as equals? Young master, I'm indebted to you for thinking so highly of this old man Lu. In the future, this old man Lu will definitely take care of the Drunken Immortal restaurant. Shopkeeper Lu's eyes became moist as he spoke. Li Jingma smiled and comforted him. Shopkeeper Lu, sit down and talk. Although my Xian is now a baron, our Li family is still the same Li family. Xian and I won't forget an old man like you who has contributed greatly to the Li family. Shopkeeper Lu cupped his hands and said, Old master is benevolent and righteous. Li Zixuan sat to the side and picked up the millet porridge his mother had prepared for him. Along with the pickled vegetables, he slurped down the porridge. As he ate, he asked, Uncle Lu, why did you come here today? Old Man Li glared at Li Zixuan when he saw his rude eating manners. Shopkeeper Lu didn't mind at all. In his view, Li Zixuan didn't treat him as an outsider. Old Man Lu was very pleased. When he heard Li Zixuan's question, Shopkeeper Lu hurriedly replied, Young master, Old Man Lu is here today to discuss the Drunken Immortal restaurant with Old Master. So what if it's the Drunken Immortal restaurant? Didn't I ask Uncle Lu to lower the price before? Li Zixuan curiously asked. Young master, we did lower the price of the chicken we ate as per your instructions. We also recovered 20% of the customers we lost. But today, the Yunxi restaurant lowered the price again. Their chicken is now only 450 copper coins per serving. Shopkeeper Lu said with a bitter expression. Li Zixuan frowned and muttered, They want to fight until the end. They want us to fight to the end. We can't lower the price of this chicken any further. There's no need to fight a price war with them anymore. Father, do you know who the owner of the Yunxi restaurant is? Li Jingma thought for a moment and said, I don't know who their owner is. I've never heard of their owner, but I do know their shopkeeper. His name is Xiaoying and he's a nobody. He only became the shopkeeper of Yunxi Pavilion 2 years ago. However, the Yunxi restaurant seems to have some backing. In the past, there were quite a few local ruffians who made a scene there and drank and reneged on their debt. Li Zixuan's frown deepened. After pondering for a moment, he said, Seems like the Yunxi restaurant has some backing. Looks like this Yunxi Pavilion has quite the background. Uncle Lu, don't bother about them for now. Just run your business as usual. I still have some matters to attend to. Once I'm free, I'll teach Wang Eru a few new dishes. While I'm at it, I'll also bring the drunken immortal restaurant a divine wine that no one has ever tasted before. Old Manly glanced at his son suspiciously. Shopkeeper Lu, on the other hand, was abnormally excited. Since young master wants to take action, then this old man Lu is completely at ease. Oh right, there's one more thing. Wang Eru previously told me that the Yunxi restaurant wanted to poach him with a higher price, but Wang Eru didn't agree. Li Zishuan was angered to the point of laughing. The Yunxi restaurant is really pushing us hard. They're unscrupulous. Uncle Lu, Eru is a good seedling. Don't mistreat him. Tell him to follow this young master and work hard. Don't think about anything else. I can give him anything that others can give him. I can even teach him to make many new dishes that others can't make. Let him weigh the pros and cons. Shopkeeper Lu hurriedly nodded and said, Yes, young master. Don't worry. I, old man Lu, feel that Eru is quite reliable. Then, young master, old master, I'll go back first. Li Zishuan nodded. Chapter 96. Li Estate's Front Hall. Xian it's fine if Drunken Immortal's business isn't good, but why do you care so much? Our family doesn't lack money. You're already a baron, so how can you work in the kitchen? After manager Lu left, Li Jingma looked at his son who was slurping down his breakfast and couldn't help but ask. He couldn't understand his son's actions. In his eyes, although Drunken Immortal's business was good, it wasn't as noble as his status as a baron. His son was a baron, yet he wanted to work in the kitchen. Old Manly felt that it was beneath his status. Li Zishuan swallowed his food and smiled. Oh, father, you're looking down on cooks? Li Jingma shook his head. That's not it. When I was young, I was a peddler. How could I look down on others? I'm just worried that you'll be impeached, saying that you don't care about the dignity of an official. Li Zishuan curled his lips in disdain. Let whoever wants to impeach me. I don't believe that His Majesty will punish me for such a small matter. Besides, those who impeach me, if they have the ability, don't eat anything from our strange taste pavilion for the rest of their lives. Li Jingma helplessly shook his head. He could only follow his son's wishes. After breakfast, Li Zishuan went to the Strange Taste Pavilion's workshop. Inside the workshop, everyone was busy and in full swing. Moreover, there were clearly more craftsmen here compared to the last time Li Zishuan was here. Faubert, how many curved plows can we produce in a day? Li Zishuan had someone find Faubert and asked. Young master, this old man has recruited 52 new craftsmen. Our workshop's production capacity has more than doubled. We can now make 300 curved plows in a day. Faubert's face was glowing. There was no trace of the lethargy of an old man on his body. Instead, one could feel his high fighting spirit. Li Zishuan smiled and nodded. And not bad. Faubert, if you meet skilled craftsmen in the future, feel free to recruit as many as you can. Our family has a lot of money, so you don't have to worry. Currently, Strange Taste Pavilion's products were in short supply. Li Zishuan really wanted to expand the workshop, but he didn't know any craftsmen. He could only ask Faubert to hurry up and recruit more craftsmen. Even someone as indifferent as Uncle Fu's mouth twitched when he heard this. This was the first time he had met such a rich and willful boss. Oh, that's right. Uncle Fu, I handed the blueprint of the curved plow to the Imperial Court yesterday. The Imperial Court will produce it vigorously. This way, the pressure on our workshop will be reduced a lot. You can spare some people to continue producing the scooters. Li Zishuan patted his head. He had almost forgotten about this. Faubert was slightly surprised when he heard this, but he understood and nodded. When he heard about the price of the curved plows, he knew that Li Zishuan didn't plan to make money from them. He was relieved. As for Li Zishuan handing over the design of the curved plows to the Imperial Court, Faubert thought that it was natural. This was because the curved plows could only be popularized with the power of a country. That's good. This old man will spare some people tomorrow to specialize in producing scooters. And, Faubert, you said that our workshop can already produce roller bearings. Then you should hurry up and use the roller bearings on the scooters and release the second generation of scooters as soon as possible, because our previous scooter would probably be imitated by others in a short period of time. By the way, you can also produce a batch of skateboards without handrails on the basis of the scooter. This is quite suitable for young people to play with. Li Zishuan thought for a while and instructed. Faubert was speechless. Although this boss in front of him was very talented in machinery, why did he always want to have fun? However, he couldn't say anything and could only nod in agreement. Faubert, the workshop has some time recently. Help me build a carriage. The carriage needs to use our workshop's newly developed roller bearings. I also brought the blueprint over today. Li Zishuan excitedly took out the blueprint of a luxurious carriage that he drew last night. This luxurious carriage was based on the Queen of England. Australia spent a lot of money to build a luxurious diamond carriage for the Queen when she attended the opening ceremony of Parliament. In his previous life, this carriage was also known as the Golden Carriage. It was designed by Jim, and 50 of the best craftsmen spent 10 years to build it. Of course, Li Zishuan abandoned the appearance of a nouveau riche. He used a low-key dark red color for the exterior of the carriage. For safety reasons, the carriage was sandwiched with iron plate. The original Golden Horse carriage had 6 hydraulic shock absorbers. With the current industrial standards, it was still impossible to do so. Li Zishuan could only add some springs to the chassis for shock absorbers. Of course, roller bearings were used on the wheel axles. The interior of the carriage had a sofa, a table, a small bathroom, and a water storage room. Although it was small, it had all the essentials. Li Zishuan's idea was beautiful, but Faubert suffered. Faubert had lived for more than half of his life, but he had never seen so many novel things. Young master, what is this thing? Faubert pointed at the springs in the blueprint and asked. Li Zishuan took a look and explained, "This is called a spring. It is made by pulling an iron wire loop by loop. A large number of springs can be added to the chassis of the carriage to reduce the vibration of the carriage. Metal springs existed for a long time in the Bronze Age. Strictly speaking, the inventor of springs should be the British scientist Hooke. There were no metal springs left in ancient China, so let's just assume that there were none." With Li Zishuan's explanation, Faubert understood. He smacked his lips and sighed. "Young master, your idea is really ingenious. Then what is this?" "This is a sofa. In the future, we can also make it as a separate piece of furniture and sell it. The sofa is made of leather wrapped with springs and some soft padding. It is mainly used to reduce the vibration of the carriage. After all, there are many places in Tang that are not easy to travel on. Just relying on the chassis of the carriage to reduce the vibration is not enough." Li Zishuan explained the structure and function of the sofa to Faubert. Faubert opened his eyes wide and looked at Li Zishuan with a strange expression. He was a bit disappointed that his boss did not live up to his expectations. His boss was talented, but he did not use it on the right path. He always thought of ways to enjoy himself. The number of ways he used was amazing. Faubert thought that if the person in front of him was his son, he would definitely give him a good beating. Li Zishuan felt a bit uncomfortable being stared at. He quickly coughed and said, "Ahem, Faubert, can the workshop make this carriage?" Faubert calmed down and thought for a while before answering, "It should be possible. But it will take some time, about 10 days. Li Zishuan said happily, "Then I will have to trouble Faubert. It doesn't matter if it takes a long time. Let the craftsman accumulate some experience in making this kind of carriage. When the speed is up, our Strange Taste Pavilion will also sell this carriage." Faubert could only nod in agreement. What else could he say when he had such a master? Chapter 97. East Market, Strange Interest Pavilion. After Li Zishuan left the workshop, He wanted to go to Strange Interest Pavilion to take a look. When he arrived at the East Market, he could see a long line in front of Strange Interest Pavilion from afar. Everyone in the line was whispering to each other. It was very lively. "Hey Zhao Lao Er, why are you here today? Why can't I be here? Wu Lao San, I say, you people are too unkind. You didn't even tell us that you had such a good plow. If I hadn't seen that kid Mei Jun plow yesterday, I would still be in the dark," a scar-faced man scolded. "Hey, you can't blame me for this. I also heard from the sister-in-law of the child's mother's cousin's eldest uncle yesterday afternoon. Our Liujia village is so far away from your plum village. I can't possibly go over and inform you, right? Sigh, actually the people from the Hanjia village were the first to know about the curved plow. We all came too late." "That's right. However, this curved plow was invented by their main family's young master. Sigh, I heard that their main family's young master was conferred the title of Baron yesterday. No one will dare to bully the Hanjia village in the future. I also heard about this. I just don't know where this lord's fief is. If it's in our plum village, then our plum village's villagers will have good days. I heard that this lord is very good to the villagers of the Hanjia village. Not only did he pay them to help him brew fruit wine, he also provided them with free chicken seedlings to raise and reduced their rent." "Bah, you're dreaming. Why don't you say that the lord's fief is in our Lu Jia village?" Wu Lao San shouted. "Sigh, Zhao Lao Er, I heard from my uncle who works in the Yamen that Lord Li's fief is in Plum Village. The Yamen has already sent people to your village's Lu Jia village to negotiate. They said that they want to take back the land and give it to Lord Li." A young man couldn't help but interrupt. Han Ergo, are you telling the truth?" Zhao Lao Er excitedly grabbed the young man's shoulder and shouted. "Ouch, it hurts, it hurts. Second Uncle Zhao, let go of me first. Everything I said is true. It was my uncle who said it himself." The young man grimaced in pain and hurriedly promised. Zhao Er's face turned red. He put down Dog Han's shoulder, turned his head, and laughed at Wu Lao San. "Haha, old Third Wu, it's my turn to be lucky this time. I'm going to be Lord Ju's family's farmer in the future. When that time comes, you'll definitely not be as rich as me. Haha, are you envious? Jealous? Are you King going to bite me?" His big face that was smiling like a chrysanthemum, coupled with the scar on his face, looked particularly terrifying and mocking. Wu Laosan shouted angrily, "Ck Zhao Laosan, you king bastard! You're asking for a beating." Li Zishuan's hearing was very good. He could hear their conversation from afar. He shook his head with a smile and ignored them. He passed through the crowd and entered through the back door of Strange Interest Pavilion. There were very few people from the Han family manor in the crowd today, so no one recognized him. "Oh, young master. No, it's Lord Ju. You're here?" Sun Huayuan, who was busy at the front desk, heard the servant's report. He quickly put down his work and ran up to the second floor. He greeted Li Zishuan enthusiastically. Li Zishuan nodded slightly and gestured for Sun Huayuan to sit down. "Shopkeeper's son, I'm sure you've heard that I've submitted the blueprint of the curved plow to the imperial court. From tomorrow onwards, half of the workshop will continue to manufacture the scooters. Shopkeeper's son, when the time comes, you can set up another team to sell the scooters." Sun Huayuan was pleasantly surprised. "That's great. Don't worry, Lord Ju. I'll arrange it well." Although the curved plow was popular, Strange Interest Pavilion didn't make much money. In comparison, Sun Huayuan was more willing to sell the scooters. This was a good performance. Li Zishuan continued. The workshop should be able to develop the second generation of scooters in the next 2 days. Compared to the first generation, the second generation scooter uses our workshop's exclusive technology. It's more flexible and faster. Shopkeeper's son, you can have people copy some flyers tomorrow to encourage people to apply for a membership card. Later on, we'll introduce more comprehensive product. Sun Huiyuan happily nodded. Yes, Lord Zhu. Don't worry. I guarantee that when the time comes, everyone in Chang'an will know about our second-generation scooters. Li Zishuan nodded with satisfaction. After chatting with Sun Huiyuan for a while, Li Zishuan thought that he had told him everything he needed to tell him, so he left the strange interest pavilion and went home. Duke Lu's mansion. Master, the price of the chicken shoots in Chang'an has risen to 115 coins. Should we continue to buy them? The old housekeeper of the Qing mansion worriedly reported to Qing Yaojin. So expensive? Qing Yaojin was also shocked. He secretly cursed the merchants in Chang'an for being treacherous. Although he was a duke, he wasn't as rich as Li Zishuan. The Duke Lu's mansion didn't have any extra food. Facing the high price of 115 coins, Qing Yaojin was a bit hesitant. However, he couldn't help but think of Li Zishuan's meaningful words after yesterday's morning court. Uncle Qing, when the time comes, you may find that the most precious part of your chickens isn't the meat. You may not be willing to sell your chickens. Qing Yaojin frowned. Now he understood that Li Zishuan raised so many chickens. It wasn't as simple as what he said in court. There must be more to it. Qing Yaojin thought of Li Zishuan's godlike master. He clenched his teeth and made a decision. Buy, continue to buy. Housekeeper Liang, when the gate of the Eastern Market opens, you go there. Bring more people with you and act separately. Li Zishuan got a new piece of land yesterday. I think he will continue to raise chickens on his land. The price of the chicken shoots will only get more and more expensive. Try to be ahead of them and buy all the chicken shoots in the Eastern Market. Try to get 30,000 chickens as soon as possible. Anyway, that kid's family doesn't lack money. Let them buy later. Ha! As Qing Yaojin spoke, he burst into laughter. In his heart, he was silently praising himself for being quick-witted. Housekeeper Liang also felt that Qing Yaojin's words made sense. He quickly bowed and left. It had to be said that Qing Yaojin's speculation was very accurate. At this time, Li Zishuan was at home. He asked housekeeper Wang to continue buying chicken shoot. Uncle Wang, how many more chickens do we need from the 80,000 in the Han village? Housekeeper Wang took out a small booklet and looked at it. He said, Young master, with the ones we bought today, we are less than 10,000 chickens. I think we can get them by tomorrow. Li Zishuan said happily, Not bad. We will have 80,000 chickens by tomorrow. You can continue to buy. I will go to Plum Village tomorrow and see how many chickens the farmers can raise. Conservatively speaking, we need at least 70,000 more. Housekeeper Wang widened his eyes and said, Young master, the price of a chicken shoot in Chang'an has risen to 115 copper coins. Do we still need to buy so many? So expensive? It was almost double the initial price of 70 copper coins. Li Zishuan pondered for a moment and asked, Uncle Wang, how much will it cost to gather all 80,000 chickens for the Han family village? Housekeeper Wang silently calculated for a moment and answered, Young master, it will cost about 13,000 strings of cash. A string of cash in the Tang Dynasty was only 800 copper coins. Therefore, it was reasonable to ask for 13,000 strings of cash for 80,000 chickens. Li Zishuan nodded. It was still within the range he could afford. He said, Uncle Wang, continue to buy. We can still afford it. Although housekeeper Wang did not understand, he still nodded. Chapter 98. The next day, after Li Zishuan finished his breakfast, he called for Iron Egg and asked, Iron Egg, come with me to the Han village today. You've been here for so long, it's time for you to go home. Iron Egg was happy to hear that. After being here for so long, he was indeed homesick, so he said, Thank you, master. Brother, I want to go too. Lan immediately shouted. Li Zishuan and Iron Egg had both left, so it was meaningless for her to stay at home alone. Li Zishuan thought about it. If he let one sheep go, he would let a flock of sheep go as well. So he nodded his head indifferently. Li Zishuan carried Lan and rode the big white horse at home. Iron Egg didn't know how to ride a horse, so Li Zishuan asked San Bao to get him a little donkey. Just like that, the three of them rode 2 horses and headed to the Han village. Greetings, Lord Zhu. Greetings, Lord Zhu. As soon as they entered the Han village, many farmers who were working in the fields hurried over to greet Li Zishuan. Among these people, there were old people and young adults. Now that Li Zishuan had become a Lord Zhu, the farmers of the Han village were even more proud. Li Zishuan didn't put on airs. He smiled and greeted everyone one by one, then brought Lan and Iron Egg to the small courtyard of the Han village. When they passed by Old Hu's house, Li Zishuan heard the sound of goo from afar. It was abnormally noisy, so he looked over and found that the courtyard door was wide open. Other than the Hu siblings, there were 8 or 9 children inside. Li Zishuan also found Nyo, who had reported to him when Lan was captured. Li Zishuan was curious, so he said to Iron Egg, bring Lan to your house first. I'll come later. Iron Egg replied, yes, master. Li Zishuan led the big white horse towards Old Hu's courtyard. Nyo, you have to treat these chickens as your friends. Have some patience. Then, pay attention to the rhythm when sure enough and I call the chickens. You'll be able to learn it very quickly. In the courtyard, Hu actually gently gathered the hair on her forehead and squatted on the ground, patiently explaining to Ernyu and the other brats the essentials of making the chickens obedient. It had been a while since they last met, and Hu's complexion was much better than the last time. Moreover, she looked more energetic. It should be because her family's life had improved recently. Nyo scratched his head and said naively, thank you, sister. I'll try again with Zhu Zi and the others. At this time, Hu Jin smiled happily and said, Nyo, don't be in a hurry. Take your time. Young master is here. Sure enough, when Hu saw Li Zishuan who had just entered the door, he suddenly jumped up and shouted excitedly. He knew that the reason why the siblings were so popular in the village was entirely because of Li Zishuan's help. Therefore, he was very grateful to Li Zishuan. When Hu Zhen heard her brother's cheers, she quickly stood up and looked at the door. Although she couldn't see, she could feel it. She rushed in the direction where Li Zishuan was standing and bowed slightly. She smiled sweetly and said, greetings, Lord Zhu. That sweet smile was like a pure lotus blooming, decorating the entire farmhouse courtyard. When the other brats saw Li Zishuan, they quickly imitated the adults and bowed. Greetings, young master. Greetings, young master. Greetings, Lord Zhu. Greetings, Lord Zhu. The brats all addressed him differently, and it was a mess. When Li Zishuan saw that Hu Zhen and her brother were living so happily, he was also very gratified. He took a package from the horse's back and took out a bag of snack. He handed it to Nyo and shouted to the brats, all right, everyone come over and share something to eat. I'll talk to Hu Zhen and Hu Zhen for a while. Zhen, you two come out. The brats excitedly surrounded Nyo and shared the snacks. No one in the village was willing to buy such exquisite food. Hu Zhen and Hu Zhen followed Li Zishuan out of the courtyard. Zhen, tell me, how have you been recently? In front of the courtyard, Li Zishuan found a large rock and sat down. The Hu siblings stood on both sides of him. Yes, young master. Hu Zhen softly agreed and began to talk about some of the things that happened in the Han village after Li Zishuan left last time. Ever since Li Zishuan had made that strange request last time, although the villagers of the Han family manor were too embarrassed to come over and learn this strange skill from the 2 children, the adults of each household had all rushed their own brats over to learn this skill. One had to know that if they learned it, they could receive a reward of 500 copper coins. This was not a small amount of money. It was enough to buy 2 new sets of clothes for their children for the new year. Thus, the small courtyard of the Hu family had almost become the village's school. The Hu siblings were naturally the teachers of this school. Those children who learned the ability to train chickens were naturally praised by their parents when they returned home. They were provided with good food and drinks, as if they had obtained good results in the school. Those brats who couldn't learn after a few days, when they returned home, their parents would feel that they were not as good as the children of other families. Naturally, they couldn't avoid being beaten up. Just like those brats who didn't do well in the exams, they wouldn't have a good ending when they returned home. Just like this, the Hu siblings became the leaders of the brats in the Han village. Even the adults in the village had to smile and greet them when they saw them. In these few days, Hu Zhen really made some good friends. She became more cheerful and talkative. When Hu Zhen saw that her brother was happy, the smile on her face became more and more. There was a bit more vitality that a young girl of her age should have, and she was no longer as lethargic as when Li Zixuan first saw her a few days ago. After hearing this, Li Zixuan was very happy for the siblings. Well, not bad, Zhen, I hope that you will always be so happy. Oh, right, how many people have you taught now? Hu Zhen said proudly, Young master, we have taught 45 people, hee. Li Zixuan smiled and said, Well, you two have done well. In the next few days I should be able to find Dr. Sun Simiao. When the time comes, I will ask him to come over and take a look at you too. Hearing this, Hu Zhen's little face was full of surprise. She said in disbelief, Young master, you said that you would find a famous doctor to treat me and Zhen. Are you talking about Dr. Sun? Li Zixuan nodded. Then he remembered that Hu Zhen could not see, so he quickly said, Yes, it's Dr. Sun de Zhen. Have you heard of Dr. Sun? Hu Zhen said with a face of admiration, Of course I have. I admire people like Dr. Sun who saves people and helps the injured without asking for anything in return. Li Zixuan did not expect Hu Zhen to be a loyal fan of Sun Simiao. He asked half-jokingly, Have you ever thought that if your eyes are cured, Dr. Sun wants to take you as his disciple? Would you be willing? Hearing this, Hu Zhen's face was first excited, and then a trace of sadness flashed across her face. She shook her head and said, Young master, you must be joking. I am not talented and I am a woman. How could Dr. Sun be willing to take me as his disciple? Haha, can't women learn medicine? Li Zixuan shook his head and did not want to argue. After chatting with the siblings for a while, he went to the small courtyard of the Han family. Chapter 99. The sun was high in the sky. Li Zixuan finally arrived at the Han family's courtyard. From afar, he could hear Lan and Iron Egg's noisy voices. Sister Yushi, Lan wants to eat the chicken stewed with mushrooms from last time. Sister, Iron Egg wants to eat gnawed chicken. You brat, gnawed chicken is so expensive. How can you eat it every day? This was Han Lijing's voice. A few days ago, he had gone into the city to ask about the price of the gnawed chicken. After finding out, Han Lijing's heart ached. The last time Li Zixuan came to their house, Iron Egg had eaten a lot of gnawed chicken. Li Zixuan smiled, pushed open the courtyard door and walked in. Han Lijing was chopping firewood in the courtyard. When he saw Li Zixuan, he quickly went up to him and said with a smile, Lord Ju, you're here. After saying that, he quickly took the reins from Li Zixuan's hands. Li Zixuan waved his hand and refused. He tied the big white horse to a big tree in the courtyard and replied with a smile, Uncle Han, don't call me Lord Ju. Uncle Han, don't call me Lord Ju. It's fine if others call me that. You and my father are old friends, and I'm Tai Dan's master. You can call me Little Xian or Young Master. Han Lijing saw that Li Zixuan treated people as politely as before after becoming a baron. When he heard Li Zixuan's sincerity, he felt warm in his heart. He smiled and said, Hee, then young master, please come in and have a seat. It's hot outside. Li Zixuan smiled and nodded. He said so much to Han Lijing because he didn't want his relationship with his family to be too estranged. Yushi, young master is here. Hurry up and prepare the food. Don't let young master wait too long. Han Lijing shouted into the kitchen. Got it, father. It'll be ready soon. Han Yushi's pleasant voice came from the kitchen. Seeing that her brother had come, Lan came into the house and played with Li Zixuan intimately for a while. Then, she could not help but go out with Iron Egg. Once the little girl went to the countryside, she became even wilder. She felt that the farmstead was much more fun than Chang'an. Inside the house, Han Lijing saw Lan and Iron Egg go out. He sighed with emotion. Iron Egg's mother passed away a long time ago. This boy has been used to being wild since he was young and doesn't know any etiquette. He must have caused a lot of trouble for Master and Madam in young Master's house. This old man really feels sorry for him. Li Zixuan shook his head and said, Uncle Han, what are you talking about? Since I have already accepted Iron Egg as my disciple, my parents have long treated Iron Egg as one of their own. What trouble is there to speak of? Moreover, I see that Iron Egg has a good character. With a little training, he will be a promising talent. When Han Lijing heard Li Zixuan's words, he could not hide the smile on his face. Any father would be happy to hear someone praise their son. Haha, as long as that boy doesn't cause trouble for young master. Uncle Han, I came here this time because I want to go to Plum Village. You should know that the fief that His Majesty gave me is in Plum Village. How much do you know about Plum Village? After chatting for a while, Li Zixuan got down to business. Han Lijing nodded and said, Young master, we are all neighbors, so of course I know. Plum Village's Lu Qingfeng was a scholar in his early years. He can be considered a person of virtue and prestige in Plum Village. I have some friendship with him. The previous owner of Plum Village was Lu Shiren. Young master, you already know this. Lu Shiren was rich but heartless. He brought disaster to the village. Lu Qingfeng was angry with him, but he did not dare to say anything. Plum Village's farmers not only had to bear high rent, but they were also exploited. Although I don't like Lu Shiren's actions, I can't do anything about it. But this time, Plum Village has become young master's fief. I think the people of Plum Village will be overjoyed if they know about it. Li Zixuan was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, Good and evil will happen. There is a cycle of reincarnation. Lu Shiren will receive the retribution he deserves. Uncle Han, take me to Plum Village in the afternoon. I want to see the situation there. Also, I plan to imitate the Han village and open a chicken farm in Plum Village. It can be considered as increasing the income of the farmers. Han Lijing sighed and said, Young master is really benevolent. Father, young master, it's time to eat. At this time, Han Yushi's shout came from outside. Then, Han Yushi walked in with a plate of dishes. Of course, she was followed by two little tails. After not seeing her for a long time, Han Yushi became more and more radiant. The joy between her eyebrows made her beautiful face even more moving. Although it was not the first time he saw Han Yushi, Li Zixuan was still mesmerized by her peerless appearance. He was a little dazed for a moment. Ahem. Han Lijing coughed softly twice. Li Zixuan was instantly awakened and his face turned red in embarrassment. He was even caught staring at Han Lijing's daughter in front of him. No matter how thick-skinned Li Zixuan was, he still felt a little embarrassed. Han Yushi put down the plate and hurried out, planning to go to the kitchen to get the rest of the dishes. Just now, she also noticed Li Zixuan's stunned gaze and felt a little happy in her heart. In the morning, when Iron Egg and Lan came over early, she found out that Li Zixuan went to Hu Jing's house and would come over in a while. Then, she did not know why, but when Lan and Iron Egg went out to play, she secretly went back to her room to dress up. Just now, she called Li Zixuan young master, and not Lord Ju, because she had some ulterior motives. After the news of Li Zixuan's knighthood spread throughout the Han family manor yesterday, Han Yushi was happy for Li Zixuan in her heart, but also a little sad that the gap between her and Li Zixuan's status was getting bigger and bigger. But when she thought of how she had ignored her father's dissuasion and resolutely agreed to help Li Zichuan brew wine, Han Yushi could not bear to give up at that time. She secretly decided that even if she could not be with him in the future, she would cherish the days they had now and treat him well. She would not regret it in the future. Therefore, when Han Yushi called Li Zichuan young master, just now, she also wanted to numb herself and not let herself think about the gap between their statuses. When the dishes were served, everyone sat down. Only then did Li Zichuan notice that the dishes on the table today were a little unusual. Other than the pheasant stewed with mushrooms from last time, there were also leek scrambled eggs, wood ear fried meat, fried shredded chicken, and stir-fried spinach, cabbage. These stir-fried dishes or fried vegetables were only available in the Li family and would not be available outside. Yushi, how do you know how to cook these dishes? Li Zichuan could not help but ask. Han Yushi was a little embarrassed as she combed her hair and said softly, "The last time I stayed at young master's house, Yushi saw that the cooking method at young master's house was a little unusual. Out of curiosity, I went to ask your kitchen maid, Auntie Zhao, and only then did I know that you could cook in this way." So, Yushi went home and tried cooking a few times and found that the taste was not bad. Later, Yushi thought of some other dishes that could be stir-fried with a big fire. "Just nice, I can use these new dishes to treat young master today." Li Zichuan smelled the fragrance of these stir-fried dishes and gave a thumbs up. He praised, "Not bad, not bad. Just smelling this aroma is enough to stimulate one's appetite. Yushi, you are really clever." Han Lijing chuckled and said, "Young master, you don't know. When my Yushi cooked at home for the first time, old Han, almost swallowed my tongue. Cooking like this, the taste is really too good." Lan could not wait to pick up her chopsticks and try the leek scrambled eggs. The little girl immediately narrowed her eyes and exclaimed, "It's really too delicious. Brother, Lan doesn't even want to go home. I want to eat Sister Yushi's dishes here every day." Everyone was amused by these innocent words. Li Zichuan also picked up his chopsticks and started eating. He realized that Lan was not exaggerating at all. The taste of these stir-fried dishes was basically comparable to some of the big restaurants in his previous life. It was even more delicious than the ones made by Auntie Zhao at home. Han Yushi's culinary skills were simply superior. Li Zichuan tasted some of the flavors from his previous life in these dishes. For a moment, his appetite was stimulated. He ate a total of 4 bowls of rice before he put down his bowl and chopsticks in satisfaction. However, in his heart, he thought that if he could marry this fairy-like and clever girl, he would have accumulated 8 lifetimes of virtue. Han Yushi saw that Li Zichuan was eating happily. She could not help but feel a little sweet in her heart. Her efforts over the past few days had not been in vain. She had just said it was simple, but in order to come up with these new dishes, only God knew how much effort she had put in. However, from the results, all her efforts were worth it. She had already taken the first step and captured Li Zichuan's stomach. Chapter 100. After lunch, Li Zichuan sat in the front hall and happily drank the chilled fruit wine that Han Yushi had taken from the ancient well. He was chatting with Han Li in the house. There was no helping it. The weather had been a little abnormal recently. It was just May and the weather had started to heat up. The afternoon sun was especially scorching. Even though Li Zichuan had internal energy and was immune to both heat and cold, he didn't want to be exposed to the scorching sun. He could only wait for the sun to warm up a little before going to Plum Village. After all, it was less than 2 li away from the Han Manor. Lan this crazy girl, wasn't afraid of the sun. She followed Iron Egg to the manor to play with Dinyo and Ernyo. Li Zichuan wasn't too worried. Now that everyone in the manor knew that Lan was his sister, there shouldn't be anyone who was blind enough to bully Lan. Li Zichuan didn't know that while he was enjoying the cool air in the Han Manor's courtyard, there were many manor owners in Plum Village who were exposed to the scorching sun. Many manor owners gathered at the entrance of Plum Village. Everyone was sitting under a big tree and chatting with each other while looking into the distance, as if waiting for something. Big Mouth May, is what you said true? Why isn't Lord Jew here yet? A tanned old man with bare arms was fanning himself with a straw hat as he asked casually. Mei Jun quickly nodded and said with certainty, "Fourth Master, I wouldn't dare to lie about this. I went to the Han Manor this morning, and my brother-in-law personally told me that Lord Jew came to the Han Manor. Think about it, our manor is so close to the Han Manor and it's Lord Jew's fief. Lord Jew will definitely come and take a look. I say, Mei Lousy, why are you in such a hurry? It's such a hot day. Won't you let Lord Jew rest for a while?" An old man was lying on a bamboo mat and enjoying his eldest grandson fanning him with a cattail leaf fan. When he heard Mei Lousy's words, he couldn't help but rebuke him. "Hey, second brother Lu, I'm just anxious. When I heard that Lord Jew's fief was in our manor yesterday, I was so excited that I couldn't sleep well the entire night. Haha, our manor's good days are coming," Mei Lousy hurriedly explained when he heard the old man's reprimand. "Tsk, look at you." The old man on the ground was the second Master Lu Wanshan, whom Mei Jun had met in the East Market a few days ago. This man was a man of virtue and prestige in Mei Village. His elder brother was the village chief, Lu Qingfeng. Lu Qingfeng was just a scholar with a weak personality. In the past, when he saw Lu Shuren and his son bullying the villagers, he did not dare to speak up. However, second Master Lu was not like his elder brother. He was a fearless master. As soon as he saw Lu Shuren and his son bullying the villagers, second Master Lu would directly pick up his walking stick and hit the heads of the father and son. In his opinion, he had 7 sons, all of whom were tall and strong. If they really fought, he would not be at a disadvantage. Taking a step back, he was already so old. Could it be that Lu Shuren and his son could beat him to death? One had to know that in ancient society, people were very respectful to the elderly. If Lu Shuren really dared to beat second Master Lu to death, it would be a very serious case. The father and son's lives would not be spared. Therefore, second Master Lu's reputation in Mei Village was even higher than his elder brother, Lu Qingfeng. It was not an exaggeration to say that he could rally hundreds of people at a single call during critical times. Yesterday, when Zhao Lauer of Mei Village brought back the news that Li Zishuan was in theft and that his fief was in Mei Village, the entire village was in an uproar. One had to know that the Han Manor situation was not much different from Mei Village's. After the Li family took over the Han Manor, they reduced the rent. The Han Manor was able to provide for food and clothing. The overall situation was slightly better than Mei Village's. Recently, Li Zishuan had taken over the Li family's authority and personally managed the Han Manor. Not only did he increase the income of the villagers by purchasing wild fruits, he also reduced the rent by letting the villagers help raise chickens. Furthermore, the eggs that the chickens laid would belong to the villagers. It was said that after the reduction, the annual rent of many villagers was only 10%. This was amazing. There was probably no other village with such favorable conditions in the entire Tang Dynasty. As the neighboring village of the Han Manor, the villagers of Mei Village were envious. They secretly hated that they were not born in the Han Manor. Now, Mei Village had become Li Zishuan's fief. The entire village would probably be able to enjoy the same treatment as the Han Manor. When the news reached the village yesterday, Lu Wanshan was the first to jump out. Ignoring Lu Qingfeng's obstruction, he shouted in the village, "Lu Shuren, get out of Mei Village." Lu Shuren's land was about to be taken away by the imperial court, so he, second Master Lu, had nothing to be afraid of. He rolled up his sleeves and fought. If he did not vent this anger, he would not be satisfied even if he died. Second Master Lu's prestige in Plum Village was very high to begin with. With his shout, how could the villagers who were usually bullied by Lu Shuren hold themselves back? In an instant, hundreds of villagers responded to his call. Hundreds of villagers scrambled to follow him, majestically charging towards Lu Shiren's mansion. Lu Shiren, get out of Mei Village! Get out of Mei Village! Get out of Mei Village! Outside Lu Shiren's mansion, hundreds of villagers shouted in unison. Their shouts shook the heavens, frightening Lu Shiren and his son. The father and son hurriedly ordered their servants to block the door with all their might. However, they hid inside the house, trembling as they waited for the villagers to disperse when they were tired of shouting. Outside the mansion, Second Master Lu saw that Lu Shiren had become a coward. They could not pry open this turtle's shell, so he took the lead and threw stones at Lu Shiren's house. The other villagers followed suit, picking up things that were convenient for them and throwing them at Lu Shiren's house. What was strange was that someone even used leaves to wrap cow dung and threw it in. As night fell, the villagers could not stay there forever. They all dispersed, agreeing to come back the next day. Lu Shiren and his son hurriedly packed their belongings in the night, including the compensation given to them by the government. After packing the gold and silver into boxes, the father and son took a few guards with them. They did not even care about the dilapidated mansion and escaped through the night. When Second Master Lu brought people to the Lu residence this morning, they naturally did not find anything. Second Master Lu spat at the door of the Lu residence in disdain and left. When it was close to noon, there was news that Li Zishuan might come to Mei Village. Other than those who had worked today, all the villagers were excited to welcome the new master of Mei Village at the entrance of the village. Second Master Lu naturally followed along. That day, he followed behind Mei Jun and also bought a curved plow. When he returned home, he tried it out. It was indeed very useful. Therefore, he was both excited and curious about the new master of Mei Village. At this time, although the sun was scorching and the heat was unbearable, no one was willing to leave. Many people were looking forward to the good days ahead under the trees. It seemed that their families would not starve anymore. They could even sew new clothes for their children during the new year. There were also some farmers who were telling their children how benevolent the new Lord Ju was. Perhaps in the future they might have eggs to eat every month and meat to eat during the new year. Those naughty children listened and unknowingly drooled for a long time. Chapter 101. It was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon in modern times. Li Zishuan noticed that the sun was not as hot as it was at noon, so he went to Plum Village with Han Lijing. After all, he still had a lot of things to do there. If he was a few hours later, he might not be able to make it back in time. He had also asked Han Yushi if she wanted to go with him. After all, it was pleasing to the eye to have such a godlike person by his side. However, Han Yushi refused. It was not that she did not want to accompany Li Zishuan, but she still had to gather some girls from the same village in the afternoon to brew the fruit wine. The fruits near the Han family manor had been picked clean these days. The brewing of the fruit wine was also at the final stage. Han Yushi really could not leave. As for Lan and Iron Egg, they had already gone somewhere. Li Zishuan could only bitterly endure the hot sun with Han Lijing and go to Plum Village. Hey look, isn't that Han Tianhu from the Han family manor? A young man sat on a big tree at the entrance of Plum Village. He sat high up and could see far. He was the first to see Li Zishuan and Han Lijing. It really is Han Lijing. Then who is the young man beside him? Could it be Lord Li? Nonsense, how can Lord Li be so young? Also, how can Lord Li go out without an attendant? It's Lord Li. I saw him at the entrance of Strange Interest Pavilion last time. Lord Li is here. Lord Li is here. Second Master Lu was lying on the bamboo mat and was about to fall asleep. Suddenly, he heard the cheers of the crowd. The old man quickly climbed up from the bamboo mat and followed the crowd with his eldest grandson to look in the direction of the sound. Li Zishuan saw the black mass of people at the entrance of the village from afar and was shocked. He thought that there were villagers gathering to cause trouble. He quickly quickened his pace with Han Lijing, wanting to find out what was going on. "Greetings, Lordly." "Welcome, Lordly." "Greetings, Lordly." "Welcome, Lordly." As soon as he reached the entrance of the village, Li Zichuan was shocked by the uniform cheers. "Young master, I'm afraid that the villagers of Plum Village know that you're coming and have gathered at the entrance of the village to welcome you," Han Lijing reminded from the side. Li Zichuan nodded and looked at the group of men and women, old and young. Many of them were emaciated, their faces yellow and their bodies emaciated. Those bare-chested burly men were bright red from the sun and were covered in sweat. Some of the children were also sweating profusely. They hid behind the adults and looked at him timidly. It was obvious that this group of people had been waiting under the scorching sun for a long time. Li Zichuan felt very uncomfortable in his heart. He secretly blamed himself for coming so late. He didn't want to wait for others or make others wait for him in both his previous and current life, so he couldn't bear to have these villagers wait for him like this. He hurriedly walked forward. "Uncles and aunties, sorry to keep you waiting." When Li Zichuan shouted, he used a bit of his inner strength, and the excited and noisy crowd immediately calmed down. Li Zichuan continued, "I don't know how everyone knew that I was coming, but I don't want everyone to welcome me like this. I can't bear it. Seeing that many of you are sweating profusely from the sun, I'll make it short. Once you're done, you can go back to your own homes, okay?" "Okay, Lord Ju, please tell us. We're all listening." "Yes, Lord Ju, please tell us." Li Zichuan gestured with his hands and said in a clear voice, "Then everyone listen up. From today onwards, Plum Village will be my fief. You will no longer be bullied by Lu Shuren. From today onwards, Plum Village will enjoy all the preferential treatment that the Han family manor enjoys, including the mountain fruit business and the reduced rent for raising chickens. From today onwards, as long as you work hard, your days will only get better and better." "Okay. Thank you, Lord Ju." "Okay. Lord Ju is merciful." When the crowd heard the promise that they had been waiting for, they all cheered excitedly. Previously, they had only privately guessed that Plum Village might enjoy the same benefits as the Han family manor. Now that they heard Li Zichuan's promise personally, they finally felt completely at ease. Some of the old farmers who had suffered so much couldn't help but cry. Second Master Lu secretly nodded his head in the crowd. Based on Second Master Lu's experience in reading people, this Lord Ju was a good young man with good character. It seemed that Second Master Lu would be able to enjoy his later years in peace and not have to fight with the landlord every day. Li Zichuan let them vent their emotions before continuing. "Okay, that's all I have to say. Next, if there are any of you who don't understand the benefits of the Han family manor, you can come and ask Han Lijing, who is beside me. If you understand clearly, please go to Plum Village's Lu Lijing to register how many chickens you can raise in your house. I'd like to remind everyone to act according to their ability and don't simply report numbers. Is Lu Lijing here today?" I'm here. Lord Ju, I'm here." A frail old man with a crooked back walked out from the crowd. Li Zichuan frowned. This Lu Lijing had too much of the aura of a Confucian scholar and lacked the domineering aura of Han Lijing. It was no wonder that trash like Lu Shuren could ride on the necks of all the Plum Village's villagers and defecate and piss unscrupulously. Li Zichuan's tone was a little serious. "Lu Lijing, I won't pursue the past matters. However, from today onwards, as the village chief, you must ensure that all the farmers in Plum Village will no longer be bullied by outsiders. Otherwise, there's no need for you to continue as the village chief." Lu Lijing's face turned red when he heard Li Zichuan's words. He cupped his hands and said, "You're right, Lord Ju. I was weak in the past and have indeed let these farmers down." Second Master Lu saw his elder brother being reprimanded and couldn't help but want to jump out and plead for Lu Qingfeng. However, after thinking about it, he held himself back. His elder brother's personality was indeed too weak and needed to be changed. Is Second Master Lu here today? Li Zixuan nodded and decided to give Lu Lijing a chance. Then, he looked at the crowd and asked. On the way here, Han Lijing had also told him about the famous Second Master Lu in Plum Village. He admired and had a good impression of this Second Master Lu, who was somewhat chivalrous in Jianghu. Since he had confirmed that the new Lord Zhu was sincerely looking out for the good of the farmers, there was nothing for him to do here. Second Master Lu was about to leave when he heard Li Zixuan calling for him. The crowd immediately opened up a path for Second Master Lu. This was Second Master Lu's unparalleled influence in Plum Village. Second Master Lu walked out and cupped his hands at Li Zixuan. This old man is not worthy of being called Lord Zhu. Lord Zhu, please call me Lu Wanshan. Although Second Master Lu had a tough personality, he was not someone who did not know what was good for him. If others respected him, he would respect them tenfold. Li Zixuan shook his head and smiled. I heard that Second Master Lu is chivalrous and often stands up for the farmers. I am very impressed. In the future, Second Master Lu will be the deputy village chief of Plum Village. I will report this to the imperial court. I hope that Second Master Lu can manage Plum Village with Lu Lijing in the future. Second Master Lu wanted to refuse, but seeing Li Zixuan's sincerity, he hesitated for a moment and finally nodded in agreement. Then I thank Lord Zhu for your trust. I will not let you down. Li Zixuan nodded and said to Lu Lijing, Lu Lijing, register the farmers now. I will go to the farms and take a look. Before I leave, give me the registration result. Lu Lijing quickly bowed and agreed. Yes, Lord Zhu. Li Zixuan then shouted to the crowd, Uncles and aunties, if you want to register, quickly come to Lu Lijing to register. After you are done, quickly go home. Don't get sick from the sun. Everyone agreed. Li Zixuan saw that there was nothing for him to do here, so he bid farewell to Han Lijing and entered the village alone. Chapter 102. The sun was setting in the west and a cool breeze blew. Li Zixuan had already finished touring the entire Plum Village by himself. Of course, there were no incidents of him getting lost or meeting a beautiful woman by chance. After all, how could there be so many beautiful women in the countryside? Han Yushi was just a special case. Plum Village was surrounded by mountains and rivers. The environment was very elegant. After Li Zixuan finished touring the village, he even had the thought of living here in seclusion. Shaking his head, he got rid of this unrealistic thought. Li Zixuan came to the village entrance and took the statistical booklet that Lu Qinfeng had made for the villagers. Then, he returned to the Han family manor. After arriving at the Han family manor, Li Zixuan asked Han Lijing to inform some villagers to go to Plum Village tomorrow to guide them in the construction of the chicken farm. Li Zixuan returned to the Han family manor alone. The Han family manor's manor. Hong Ling, quickly bring 3 people to wash the wild strawberries. Okay, Sister Yushi. Ah Xiang, bring 4 people to wash and cut these hawthorns. Sister Yushi, Ah Xiang will go now. Wen, go get some water, sugar, and distilled yeast. Okay. The moment Li Zixuan entered the manor, he felt as if he had come to a country of women. The manor was full of young and lively girls, making the surrounding air seem fresher. This was the first time he saw Han Yushi personally making wine. He saw her use a hairband to tie up her long hair. Her sleeves were also rolled up high, revealing 2 slender white jade-like arms. She was squeezing some juice, mixing some distilled yeast and sugar, and pouring it into the wine jar. Her movements were so elegant. Her every move was poetic. While she was busy with the work in her hands, she directed the girls to do their jobs and work together. The manor seemed to have become her battlefield, and she was the female general of the battlefield. Perhaps it was because of the hot weather, but there were already beads of sweat on Han Yushi's nose. Some traces of sweat could also be seen on the clothes on her back. Every time she bent down, the thin white dress outlined her beautiful figure. See no evil, see no evil. Li Zixuan hurriedly turned his face away and coughed twice. Only then did Han Yushi and the other girls realize that Li Zixuan had already entered the door. Greetings, Lord Ju. All the girls stopped what they were doing and bowed to Li Zixuan. Han Yushi gave him a smile. Young master, you're back. When Li Zixuan heard this, he felt a little strange. It was as if a wife was greeting her husband who had just returned from afar. Shaking his head to get rid of the wild thoughts in his mind, he hurriedly smiled at the girls. There's no need to be so courteous. Carry on with your work. Don't delay it because of me. After saying that, Li Zixuan walked straight to Han Yushi. Although the other girls returned to their original positions and continued with their work, their eyes secretly glanced over from time to time. Which girl didn't yearn for love? Li Zixuan was handsome and had a high status. He was young and rich. It would be a lie if they said they weren't moved. However, they all understood that in terms of beauty, all of them added together couldn't compare to Han Yushi. Now, they were looking at Li Zixuan and Han Yushi with gossipy gazes. All the girls wanted to know if Han Yushi, the most beautiful girl in the Han family manor, and even the surrounding villages, could capture the heart of this young Lord Ju. Of course, in their hearts, they really hoped that Han Yushi and Li Zixuan would end up together. Because then, this young Lord Ju would be the son-in-law of the Han family manor. The Han family manor would continue to have good days in the future. Yushi, you've worked hard. Come and wipe your sweat. Li Zixuan tenderly handed over a handkerchief. He wasn't used to wearing it on his body. He felt that only women would wear handkerchief. However, every time Xiao Shi helped him pack his clothes, she would put a washed handkerchief on his waist. After a long time, Li Zixuan was too lazy to correct her. He didn't expect to use it today. He wanted to personally wipe Han Yushi's sweat. However, he remembered that this was ancient times. If he did so, it would be too presumptuous. Not only would it ruin a girl's reputation, Han Yushi would probably ignore him in the future. It had to be said that even though Li Zixuan had been in a relationship in his previous life, he was still a novice when it came to understanding women's thoughts. Until now, he still couldn't see Han Yushi's feelings for him. Han Yushi hesitated for a moment. She shyly took the handkerchief and thanked him. Then, she gently wiped the sweat on her face and said, "Young master, this is the last batch of fruit wine. The previous batch of fruit wine can already be taken out of the cellar. When will it be sent to you?" Li Zixuan muttered, "How much was the last batch of fruit wine?" Han Yushi thought for a moment and replied, "There were a total of 80 jars. Each jar was about 40 pounds. Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Then tomorrow, ask your father to call a few young men and send the last batch of fruit wine to my house. Yushi, are you free tomorrow? After the wine is sent over, we will start mixing the wine. Do you want to come together?" Finally, she could help the young master. Han Yushi was a little excited. She quickly replied, "Yes, young master. Today's last batch of fruit juice and wine can be put into the cellar after mixing. That's all." Li Zixuan happily said, "That's good." At this moment, Lan and Iron Egg came back. The little girl was sweating all over, but her face was filled with a happy smile. Li Zixuan was a little speechless. His little sister's temper was getting wilder and wilder. "Master! Brother!" The two little guys greeted Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan nodded. Seeing that it was getting late, he said goodbye to Han Yushi. Iron Egg stayed. Li Zixuan asked him to go to the city with Han Yushi and the others tomorrow. As soon as he got home, Li Zixuan immediately went to the study. He wanted to draw a set of distillation equipment. A complete set of distillation equipment was divided into two parts, the distillation pot and the condenser. Li Zixuan planned to make the distillation pot with pure copper. First, copper had a good thermal conductivity. Second, copper was a catalyst for some esterification reactions. Third, copper had a good resistance to the acidity of the raw wine. Fourth, copper could make butyric acid, hexanoic acid, decanoic acid, lauric acid, and so on form insoluble copper salts and precipitate them, so that these unpleasant acids could be removed. As for the condenser part, Li Zishuan planned to use a clay pot to fire it, because in this era, the process of firing glass was not mature. Li Zishuan knew the general formula, but he did not have the time to study it. With the help of his super-strong mental strength, he drew a set of distillation equipment in less than an hour. He did not miss a single detail. Then, he quickly went to the workshop before the door was closed. He asked Faubert to help him make a set of distillation equipment before noon tomorrow. Faubert looked at the blueprint. It was not difficult, so he agreed. Li Zishuan breathed a sigh of relief. When he returned home, he bumped into Wang Zhong and San Bao, who came back from the East Market. Wang Zhong immediately asked for forgiveness. "Young master, I did not buy many chicken seedlings today. This old servant has failed in his duty. I have let young master down." Li Zishuan was surprised. "Why?" Wang Zhong told Li Zishuan about how the Qing family's housekeeper brought a lot of people to the East Market and bought all the chicken seedlings in less than a quarter of an hour. Li Zishuan pondered for a moment and understood the ins and outs of the matter. He shook his head and laughed. "Uncle Wang, you don't have to buy the chicken seedlings for the next 2 days. Let the Qing family buy them first. Oh right, the Plum Village still needs 70,000 chicken seedlings. Uncle Wang, you can buy them all in the future." "But, young master..." Wang Zhong reached out his hand and stopped. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, "Uncle Wang, it's okay. Our family is not lacking in money. It's fine if we buy them a few days later." Qing Yaojin's guess was right. The Li family was not lacking in money. Since Qing Yaojin was willing to take advantage of Li Zishuan, it meant that he did not treat Li Zishuan as an outsider. Of course, Li Zishuan would not be calculative. Chapter 103. In a private room on the top floor of Yunxi Pavilion. Inside the room, the young master was fiddling with the wine cup in his hand and casually asked, "Our Yunxi Pavilion has already made a move. Is there no movement from the Drunken Immortal restaurant?" The middle-aged man respectfully replied, "Young master, there is indeed no movement from the Drunken Immortal restaurant. Neither Li Zishuan nor manager Lu has made any special moves." "Then what has Li Zishuan been doing recently? Does he not care about his restaurant's business?" "According to the reports from my subordinates, Li Zishuan has been busy with his new fief. Today, he even went to Plum Village and Han Village." "Oh right, young master, Li Zishuan has asked the villagers to pick some fruit. It seems that he wants Han Tianhu's family to help him brew wine." "What kind of wine?" the young master curiously asked. "Young master, this subordinate guesses that it should be the fruit wine that Han Tianhu and his daughter brewed. Our Yunxi Pavilion has also bought some before and the taste is indeed very good. However, Li Zishuan bought it at a high price and the father and daughter stopped supplying it to us." The young master stood up and muttered with a frown. Could it be that Li Zishuan plans to use this wine to fight against our Yunxi Pavilion? No, this young master reckons that their wine is not that simple. Immediately send a flying snake to the Han village and bring back a jar of their wine." "Yes, young master." The middle-aged man bowed and was about to leave. The young master suddenly thought of something and suddenly shouted, "Wait!" The middle-aged man quickly turned around and said, "Young master, do you have any other orders?" The young master thought for a moment and said, "We have to plan for both sides. Tomorrow, go and invite Xia Xingyuan from the western part of the city to our Yunxi Pavilion as a chef. Not only do we have to imitate the Drunken Immortal restaurant's dishes, but we also have to create our own specialty dishes." The middle-aged man hesitated and said, "Young master, this Xia Xingyuan is an imperial chef from the previous dynasty. I'm afraid it won't be easy to invite him. The young master sneered and said, Hee, if you can't invite him, can't you use money to threaten his family? Do you still need this young master to teach you what to do? Yes, young master, this subordinate knows what to do. By the way, I heard that the Qing family has been following Li Zixuan and buying chicken seedlings on a large scale? Reporting to young master, there is indeed such a thing. As a result, the price of chicken in Chang has risen to 115 copper coins per chicken. The young master proudly said, since they are stupid and have a lot of money, and they want the chicken seedlings so much, you can go to my second uncle today and borrow several big boats. You can go to Jiangnan through the Grand Canal and buy 80,000 chicken seedlings. You can ship them to Chang and sell them to the two families. This way we can also make a lot of money. When the time comes, we will have more confidence to defeat my good big brother. The middle-aged man exclaimed in admiration, Young master is truly far-sighted. This subordinate admires you. What are you flattering me for? Hurry up and do your job. The young master impatiently waved his hand and scolded. However, from the flash of joy in his eyes, it could be seen that he enjoyed the flattery very much. After the middle-aged man left the room, the young master looked out of the window. Then, he seemed to have thought of something unhappy. His face was ferocious as he said hatefully, My good big brother, this time I will definitely not lose to you. Chang and City, Azure Dragon Lane. In the backyard of a luxurious mansion, there was a young girl in gorgeous clothes. She was riding a scooter and playing happily. Not far away in the corridor, there was a young master in white who was looking at the little girl with a smile on his face. Eldest young master, just now in the streets and alleys of Chang and City, some pieces of paper suddenly appeared. On them were notices about the strange interest pavilion. A young servant in green clothes quickly came over and reported to the young master in white. This young servant was Lu Yun, who had applied for a Red Supreme membership card in the strange interest pavilion a few days ago. Let me see it. The young master in white withdrew his gaze and turned around to take the notice in Lu Yun's hand. After a while, he smiled and said, Second-generation scooter? This strange interest pavilion is really interesting. Scooter, curved shaft plow, it's really interesting. Lu Yun, take this young master's membership card tomorrow and buy Meng Air a so-called second-generation scooter. This young master wants to see how different this second-generation scooter is from the first generation. Lu Yun didn't understand his young master's strange behavior recently, but he didn't dare to ask. He quickly bowed and said, Yes, young master. The young master in white nodded slightly, but when he saw that Lu Yun hadn't left, he frowned and said, What, do you have something to say? A trace of struggle flashed across Lu Yun's face. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, Reporting to young master, I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it. The young master in white said unhappily, If you have something to say it quickly. Don't dawdle. Seeing that the young master was unhappy, Lu Yun quickly said, Young master, as far as I know, the second young master has taken a lot of measures recently to consolidate the position of the Yunshi house in Chang and City. Seeing that the Yunshi house is about to dominate Chang and City, eldest young master, why are you still what? Still idle around and have nothing to do, right? Forgive me, young master, I didn't mean that. I'm just worried that if this goes on, young master will lose the family trial this time and lose the power. When Lu Yun heard what the young master in white said, he hurriedly bowed and explained in fear. The white-clothed man sighed, but he didn't blame Lu Yun. He said slowly, You all think I haven't done anything? Okay, it seems that I haven't done anything yet. Lu Yun was almost choked to death by the young master in white's sudden change in topic. The young master in white was embarrassed for a while before he recovered and said, I haven't done anything yet because the time isn't right yet. This second brother of mine has a very extreme personality. He has always liked to be brave and ruthless, and he is competitive. Some of the elders in the family even agree with his way of doing things. But you all don't understand. Now that the world is settled and the people are united, if we big families still can't see the situation clearly and put on a high and mighty posture and keep fighting with others, we will only make countless enemies. In the end, everyone will push the wall when it is down. At that time, the Li Tang royal family will definitely be happy to see it and hit us when we are down. At the end of the Sui dynasty, all of you were afraid of the slightest thing and didn't dare to jump out to fight with the Li family to seize the country. Now that the world is stable, all of you jump out one by one. Aren't you tired of not dying fast enough? The young master in white was a little angry as he spoke. In the end, he couldn't help but hit the railing angrily. Lu Yun saw that the young master in white lost his composure and hurriedly comforted, "Young master, please calm down." The young master in white calmed down and continued, "In a time of peace and prosperity, blindly being brave and ruthless can't be done. Cooperating with others to win is the smart thing to do and the way to survive." Lu Yun heard this and said in surprise, "Young master, do you want to cooperate with Li Zixuan? I'm afraid the family won't agree, right?" The young master in white snorted angrily and said angrily, "Humph, a bunch of stubborn old men, never willing to lower their arrogant heads and can't see the situation at all. However, this is only a small trial in the family. All the decisions are up to me. The family has no right to interfere." Lu Yun heard the young master in white's rebellious words and hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to say anything. The young master in white stood in place. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. In the end, he snorted angrily and left with his hands behind his back. Chapter 104. Li Zixuan didn't know that there were two brothers who were constantly thinking about him. He had been tired for the whole day, so after taking a shower, he fell into a deep sleep not long after lying on the bed. Han Village, Han family courtyard. It was late at night and the moon was dark and the wind was strong. A black shadow floated over the wall and landed on the ground without making a sound. The black-clothed man looked around, then bent down and carefully sneaked into the wine cellar on the west side of the courtyard. A moment later, he came out with a jar of wine in his arms. His feet lightly tapped the ground, and he was about to soar into the sky. Suddenly, his feet sank, and then a huge force came. He saw a tall and burly old man lift him up and smash him against the courtyard wall with all his strength. "Who are you, sneaking around like this? Tell me your name." Although Han Lijing was already sound asleep, his many years of military life still made him vigilant. At night, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He immediately turned over and saw a black shadow in the courtyard about to leave. He quickly went forward and grabbed the person's ankle and threw him against the courtyard wall. When the black-clothed man was about to hit the wall, he pulled out the soft sword at his waist and poured his internal energy into it. The soft sword made a sound and instantly straightened. The black-clothed man hurriedly pressed the soft sword against the wall to cushion the impact. The soft sword suffered a huge impact and was quickly pressed into an arc. The black-clothed man took advantage of the momentum to do a beautiful somersault in the air and landed steadily. "Oh, I didn't think that there would be an expert in this remote village." After the black-clothed man landed, he looked at Han Lijing and said in a neutral tone. His voice was feminine and ear-piercing. The most disgusting thing was that when he spoke, he even raised his thumb and middle finger. Han Lijing listened to his voice and looked at his actions. Instantly, his hair stood on end and goosebumps appeared all over his body. "Who are you? What do you want in my house in the middle of the night?" Han Lijing trembled and shouted. "He." The black-clothed man laughed. This made Han Lijing so disgusted that he almost threw up his dinner. At this time, he heard the black-clothed man say in a coquettish voice, I just came to borrow a jar of wine from you. Why are you being so fierce? You hurt me just now. All right, I won't talk nonsense with you anymore. I have to go." After saying that, he twisted his thumb and middle finger, lightly twisted his snake waist, stomped his feet on the ground, and fled far away like a gust of wind. Han Lijing also wanted to chase, but his left leg had an old injury, so it was inconvenient for him to move. Moreover, this black-clothed man's Qinggong was extremely high, and Han Lijing himself was not proficient in Qinggong, so he could only stand in the same place, helpless. "Father, what happened?" Han Yushi heard a sound in the courtyard, so she put on her coat and came out to investigate. Han Lijing shook his head and comforted her. "It's okay. Yushi, go back and sleep. Tomorrow, I will accompany you to Chang'an City." Today, the man in black was of unknown origin. Han Lijing smelled a trace of danger. Thinking that his daughter was going to Chang'an to deliver wine tomorrow, Han Lijing was somewhat worried and decided to accompany his daughter. Father, then daughter will go to sleep. Father should also rest early." Han Yushi did not see anything unusual, so after she finished speaking, she directly turned around and went back to her room to rest. The next morning, after Li Zixuan finished his breakfast, he asked Faubert to bring people to buy various kinds of wine, and then he went to the west courtyard to practice. Previously, his Taishen Sutra showed signs of breaking through to the 6th level, but as he was busy with mundane affairs these days, the feeling of breaking through in his body disappeared. This made him very depressed, so he decided to work hard today. He wanted to use the sword to refine the true qi in his body. However, someone did not let him do as he wished. He had just practiced for a while when Qing Chumo came to his door. "Haha, little Xian, I haven't seen you for a few days, and you have been conferred a title. You have to treat your brother to a few drinks." Qing Chumo laughed loudly and walked into the west courtyard. This fellow was now a frequent guest of the Li family, and there was no need to report his entry. All the servants in the residence knew that he was the son of Lu Guogong, and no one dared to stop him. Li Zixuan put away the wind-chasing sword and came up to him with a smile. "Brother Chonyo, you can't say that. Look, your younger brother has been conferred a title. As his elder brother, shouldn't you treat your younger brother to a big meal to celebrate?" Qing Chumo was suddenly speechless. He scratched his head and muttered, "That seems to be the case." Li Zixuan looked at him and found it funny. He thought that since he had nothing to do, it would be fun to tease this fellow. So he continued, "Then tomorrow, Brother Chonyo will treat us to a big meal at the Drunken Immortal restaurant. How about it?" Qing Chumo was instantly embarrassed. He knew his family's situation very well. His father had just taken out 4,000 to 5,000 strings of cash to buy chicken seedlings, and Li Er had docked 3 months of his father's salary. This was one disaster after another. Old Cheng's family was currently living a tight life, waiting for Old Li to give them a salary. Qing Chumo did not have much pocket money left, so he was too embarrassed to look for his friends. When he heard that Li Zixuan had been conferred a title, he thought that he would be able to freeload a good meal here. Who knew that he would be defeated by Li Zixuan? This instantly turned awkward. However, what kind of person was Qing Chumo? He did not care about things like face. He chuckled cheekily and said, "Hee, that's great. Little Xian, I'll take you to the Yunxi restaurant for a big meal tomorrow. I heard that they invited the imperial chef from the previous dynasty, Xia Xingyuan, to cook there. I'll treat you and you'll pay. How about it?" When Li Zixuan heard the first half of his sentence, he thought that the sun had risen from the west today. This fellow actually took the initiative to treat him to a meal? When Li Zixuan heard Qing Chumo say that he would pay for the meal, Li Zixuan staggered. He wanted to slap his size 42 shoes on Qing Chumo's size 38 face. Of course, Qing Chumo probably didn't know how big a size 38 was. Li Zixuan said unhappily, "Get the F*ck out of here." After the brothers teased each other for a while, Li Zishuan brought him to the front hall and asked someone to serve tea and snacks. At this moment, he suddenly remembered what Ching Chumo had said and asked, "Chonyo, you just said that the Yunshi restaurant invited the imperial chef from the previous dynasty?" Ching Chumo did not eat much in the morning. As he ate tea and snacks, he stammered, "That's right. That imperial chef from the previous dynasty lives not far from my house. When I came over this morning, I heard them talking about it. Sigh, if it weren't for the fact that I'm short on money, I would have gone to try that imperial cuisine." As Ching Chumo spoke, his saliva was about to drip out. He quickly turned his grief into appetite and ate the tea and snacks on the table with all his might. Li Zishuan was speechless. He had previously guessed that the Qing residence's finances might be a little tight recently. After all, taking out a few thousand strings of coins all at once would hurt most people. Moreover, if it weren't for the fact that their family was short on money, Ching Chumo would not have taken the initiative to take advantage of them and buy the chicken seedlings first. However, he had never imagined that Ching Chumo would be in such a miserable state. He was actually so poor that he came here to freeload. However, the matter that Ching Chumo mentioned had attracted his attention. The Yunshi restaurant had been making a lot of moves recently, and it was obvious that they wanted to stir up trouble. With the imperial chef's reputation, they would probably attract a lot of diners. Fortunately, his cocktail was almost ready. He had full confidence that it would definitely beat that imperial chef. Haha, brother Chonyo, you don't have to be envious of the imperial cuisine. In the end, it's just some old trick. Our drunken immortal restaurant will also be releasing a few new delicacies and a new wine. I guarantee that it will be the best wine in our great Tang. When the time comes, this little brother will invite you to try it. Li Zishuan chuckled. Hearing this, Ching Chumo's eyes lit up. He automatically filtered out the so-called new dishes. What he cared about the most was the new wine that Li Zishuan mentioned. As a descendant of a military leader, there was no one who did not like wine. Little Xian, is this wine really as good as you say it is? Big brother is very picky when it comes to wine. I won't drink unless it's a famous wine, Ching Chumo said arrogantly. Li Zishuan snorted in his heart. It was already good enough that the old Ching Chumo could afford wine. Ching Chumo was still panting here, but he was still his brother. He still had to give him some face. Li Zishuan said cooperatively, "Chonyo, don't worry. Choox, don't worry. When my master was alive, he loved to drink this kind of wine the most. Do you think this wine tastes good?" Hearing this, Ching Chumo felt as if his heart was being scratched by 100 claws. He looked forward to this new wine even more. He had heard the legend of spiritual master Ling Su from his father countless times. In his opinion, this kind of wine that even immortals loved to drink should be considered an immortal wine. Little Xian, where is this wine? Big brother can't wait. Quickly take it out and let me have a taste. Li Zishuan shook his head and laughed. This wine is a kind of mixed wine. It hasn't been mixed yet. I plan to start mixing it when the ingredients are delivered. Ching Chumo said excitedly, "That's great. Big brother has nothing to do today. I'll wait here for you to mix the wine. Haha, I can even taste the wine for you for free." This guy was really shameless. He obviously wanted to freeload the wine, but he said it in such a dignified manner. Li Zishuan's face was full of black lines. However, he didn't know how to drink. Letting Ching Chumo taste the wine on the side was a good idea. He just hoped that this guy would be more reliable when the time came. Chapter 105. Chang'an City, Li Mansion. Li Zishuan couldn't do anything about a certain thick-skinned person who refused to leave. However, Han Yushi wasn't here yet, so he definitely couldn't brew wine. Thus, Li Zishuan dragged Ching Chumo to the west courtyard to spar with him. "F***ck, I'm not coming. Stop fighting. Your King abusing your position to avenge your personal grudge. How can this be? We agreed to spar. How can we give up halfway? Then you have to suppress your skills to the same level as mine. Otherwise, we won't fight. That makes sense. Then I'll suppress my skills to the peak of the body forging realm, just like you. 15 minutes later. F***CK, I'm not coming. I'm not coming even if you beat me to death. Xiao Xian, you pervert. I'll never spar with you again. Hey Chooks, I haven't seen you for a few days. Your skills have improved. Get up quickly. I'll suppress it to the middle stage of the body forging realm. Let's go again. I'm not coming. I'm not coming today. Although Li Zixuan suppressed his skills, his swordsmanship was too advanced. Qing Chumo tried his best, but he could only be abused. In less than 15 minutes, Qing Chumo was beaten to a pulp. He lay on the ground and refused to get up no matter what. Oh wow! Brother Chooks is a mangy dog. How embarrassing! Lan'er came to the west courtyard to play with her brother. She saw Qing Chumo lying on the ground with a bloody nose and a swollen face. The little girl didn't mind the commotion and ran over to mock Qing Chumo. Qing Chumo was embarrassed. He quickly got up from the ground and pointed at Li Zixuan. Lan'er, look at how overboard your brother is. He's bullying the weak just because he's skilled in martial arts. Don't you feel ashamed to have such a brother? Of course not. Brother Chonyo, on the other hand, you can't even defeat my brother. How embarrassing! Lan'er jumped to Li Zixuan's side and happily pulled on Li Zixuan's arm. She playfully made a face at Qing Chumo. Qing Chumo instantly received 100,000 critical hit. Alone in the wind, he was in a mess. What do you mean by even your brother can't beat me? Qing Chumo really wanted to carry the little girl over and teach her the general knowledge of Jianghu. He wanted her to understand that there were not many people among the younger generation in Jianghu who could defeat Li Zixuan. At this time, Wang Zhong walked in. After nodding at Qing Chumo, he said to Li Zixuan, "Young master, I bought all the baijiu and put it in the cellar at home. Previously, Manager Fu sent someone to deliver some equipment. This old servant saw that young master and young master Qing were sparring, so this old servant didn't come to disturb you." Faubert was now in charge of the Strange Taste Pavilion workshop. The people in the residence usually called him Manager Fu. Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Thank you, Uncle Wang." At this time, Xiao He ran over and bowed. "Young master, Han Lijing and Miss Han are here." Li Zixuan's spirit was lifted. He quickly turned around and said to Qing Chumo, "Brother Chonyo, you go in and tidy up. I'll go to the front yard to receive them. Now that all the ingredients for the new baijiu have been gathered, we can make the new baijiu soon." Qing Chumo couldn't wait and waved his hand. "Go, go." When Li Zixuan arrived at the front yard, he found his father chatting enthusiastically with Han Lijing. Previously, he had heard from his father that when he was young, he had encountered a group of bandits in the Qinling Mountains. Fortunately, he had received Han Lijing's help and was able to avert the danger. After that, his friendship with Han Lijing had never broken. Madame Li was holding Han Yushi's hand and chatting happily. Li Zixuan really wanted to go over and listen to what they were talking about. They were actually chatting so happily. "Master." Iron Egg came over and greeted him. Li Zixuan nodded and walked over to Han Lijing. He cupped his hands and said, "Uncle Han, you've worked hard. But why did you come personally?" Han Lijing stood up and replied, "Young master, a thief came to our house last night and stole a jar of baijiu. This old man was worried that something would happen to Yushi on the road today, so I came over." Li Zixuan immediately stood up and asked with a frown, "What happened? Uncle Han, quickly tell me." At this time, Li Jingma also looked over with a serious expression. Han Lijing then recounted the events of last night's confrontation with the wine thief. Li Zixuan pondered for a long time but still couldn't figure out the thief's intentions. He could only frown and say, "That's right. Uncle Han, this person's kung fu is strong, but his purpose is unknown. I'm afraid his purpose is not as simple as stealing wine. Uncle Han, you and Yushi should be careful when you go out recently." Han Lijing nodded. The few people in the house chatted for a while. Li Zixuan brought Han Yushi and Iron Egg to the west courtyard to prepare to mix the baijiu. Naturally, Han Lijing was accompanied by Li Jingma. He had to stay for lunch at noon. Qing Chumo had just gone to get a basin of water to wash the dust off his face. At this time, he saw Li Zixuan and Han Yushi walking over side by side. The two of them were slim and graceful. The man was like a jade tree in the wind, and the woman was like a beautiful flower in the water. They were really a match made in heaven. Qing Chumo was not a novice in love. When he saw Li Zixuan and Han Yushi looking at each other with some affection in their eyes, he knew that they must have an affair. This fool hurriedly went forward and winked at Li Zixuan. He said wretchedly, "Aya, little Xian, where did you kidnap this beautiful girl from? Why didn't you introduce her to your big brother?" Han Yushi instantly blushed and lowered her head to count ants. Li Zixuan glared at Qing Chumo angrily. "Don't talk nonsense, Chonyo. This is Han Lijing's daughter, a master winemaker. She is the most important person for the new wine I want to mix. If you offend her, be careful that you don't have any wine to drink. Yushi, this is Qing Chumo, the eldest son of Lu Guogong and my brother. Don't treat me like an outsider." When Qing Chumo heard this, he wanted to give himself 2 big slaps. He quickly licked his face and said with a fawning smile, "Oh, Miss Han, don't be angry. I was just talking nonsense. It was a joke. Don't take it to heart." Han Yushi did not expect Lu Guogong's son to be such a lively clown. She quickly said, "Young Master Qing, you are too serious. Yushi did not take what you said before to heart." Qing Chumo breathed a sigh of relief and said, "That's good, that's good. Xiao Xian, quickly mix the wine. I can't wait any longer." Li Zixuan nodded and led Han Yushi and Qing Chumo to a side room in the west courtyard. Li Zixuan handed the cocktail recipe to Han Yushi and said, "Yushi, these are the various ingredients needed for the cocktail. As for the ratio between the various ingredients, you can estimate it. First, make a cocktail with a mild temperament. Tai Dan and I will purify the liquor with a higher concentration. Then, you can use the liquor to make some strong cocktails." One must know that the most prominent feature of cocktails was that there were many varieties and different concoctions. There were mild cocktails suitable for women, such as Angel's Kiss, Summer Night's Tenderness, Pink Beauty, and so on. There were also strong cocktails suitable for men, such as Killer, Tequila, Scorpio Palace, and so on. Currently, the materials he had were only enough to make some mild cocktails. Therefore, Li Zixuan planned to obtain some strong alcohol through distillation and use it to make strong cocktails. Han Yushi held the cocktail recipe and nodded. Then, she sat down and began to meditate on how to make it. Li Zixuan brought Iron Egg to a room inside. This room used to be a kitchen. Li Zixuan had it transformed into a brewery. The brewing equipment sent by Faubert was also in place at this time. Now everything was ready. All that was left was the east wind. Chapter 106. Li Residence, West Courtyard. In a makeshift workshop, Iron Egg was making a fire. Li Zixuan was pouring white wine into the distillation pot and paying attention to the temperature in the pot. "Master, can we get stronger wine if we heat it up?" Iron Egg asked curiously. Li Zixuan saw that he had time now, so he decided to teach his cheap disciple some scientific knowledge. "Of course we can't get stronger wine just by heating it. Iron Egg, have you boiled water before?" "Yes, of course I have." "Then have you noticed that after boiling water, if you continue to boil it, the water in the pot will become less and less?" "Yes, master, it's true." Li Zishuan nodded and continued, actually, the reason why the wine we are drinking is not strong is because there is too much water and too little alcohol. Oh, Master calls the intoxicating thing in the wine alcohol. What Master needs to do now is to steam out the water in the wine to make the wine more concentrated. Do you understand? Iron Egg nodded thoughtfully and then asked doubtfully, Then Master, will you steam out the alcohol as well? Li Zishuan praised, Iron Egg, you asked a good question. This is the most important part of distilling wine. In fact, compared to water, alcohol is more volatile at a lower temperature. Well, in other words, if we steam them together, the alcohol will be the first to come out. Then we add a pipe with cold water to the back. The alcohol will become liquid when it is cold. Do you understand? The boiling point of alcohol is around 75 degrees. It can only be liquefied when the temperature drops below 75 degrees. At around 50 degrees, the evaporation rate is very fast. Therefore, the condensed alcohol must be cooled to below 50 degrees in the condensing pipe. Generally, it will only flow out when it is cooled to around 30 degrees. Of course, there are also ways to cool it at a lower temperature. Iron Egg shook his head in confusion and said, Master, Iron Egg understands what you said, but when you said that the evaporated alcohol will turn into liquid when it enters the pipe, this Iron Egg doesn't quite understand. Li Zishuan patted his forehead and helplessly explained to Iron Egg that the solution vaporizes when it is hot and the steam liquefies when it is cold. Iron Egg finally understood. Okay, don't be distracted. You still have a lot to learn in the future. Now focus on the fire and pay attention to the temperature. Yes, Master. Half an hour later, the condenser's thin pipe finally began to slowly flow of concentrated liquor. Suddenly, a strong aroma filled the entire room. Wow, it smells so good. Master, this wine smells much better than the wine my father usually drinks. Iron Egg sniffed at the side and said excitedly. Li Zishuan smiled faintly, not denying it. Little Xian, what kind of liquor is this? It smells so good. Ching Chumo, who was outside the room, smelled the strong aroma of the liquor and immediately rushed in. This guy didn't know how to write the word polite. As he spoke, he came up to take away the wine jar under the condenser. Li Zishuan hurriedly stopped him. Stop, this first distilled liquor is poisonous. You can't drink it, ugly ox. This guy really didn't care about his life. Although the first distilled liquor had a high alcohol concentration and smelled very good, it contained a large amount of aldehydes, esters, ketones and other substances with low boiling points. Drinking these substances could cause blindness or even death. Ching Chumo said in disbelief, How can there be poison in the liquor? Don't lie to me. Hurry up and let me taste it. Don't be so stingy. Li Zishuan was too lazy to pay attention to this guy who didn't care about his life. He saw that more than 2 caddies of the first liquor had flowed out, so he replaced it with an empty jar. He took the jar with the first liquor and prepared to pour it out. Ching Chumo saw through his intention and was anxious. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't beat Li Zishuan, he would have definitely snatched it. Li Zishuan poured the first liquor in the courtyard. Ching Chumo stood there reluctantly and sniffed the remaining liquor aroma in the air. He muttered with a look of pity, Wastrel, wastrel. Li Zishuan ignored him and turned back to the room. 2 hours later, Li Zishuan came out with a jar of high alcohol concentration and placed it on the table next to Han Yushi. He looked at Han Yushi and asked, Yushi, how is it? Have you figured out the ratio of the ingredients? Han Yushi nodded and pushed a glass of red wine over. She said, Young master, after many attempts, I found that the wine with this combination is easier to drink. Try it. Li Zishuan looked at the wine and hesitated. Han Yushi smiled and said, Young master, don't worry. This wine won't get you drunk. Li Zishuan then picked up the wine glass and took a sip. There was the sourness and sweetness of the mountain fruit in his mouth. After tasting it carefully, there was a faint wine fragrance, mellow and sweet. Li Zishuan nodded with satisfaction. Han Yushi was indeed a genius in the field of winemaking. He only gave her a list of ingredients, but she actually figured out the ratio of various ingredients by herself. She was really amazing. Well, not bad, not bad. Yushi, you are really amazing. Just mix according to this ratio. When Han Yushi heard Li Zishuan's praise, she immediately felt that her hard work was worth it. She quickly agreed in a low voice and continued to mix the wine. At this time, Ching Chumo walked in and looked at Li Zishuan bitterly. Then he suddenly caught a glimpse of the cocktail that Han Yushi had made. He immediately became spirited and shouted, "Miss Han, is this the new wine you made? Quickly let me, a wine taster, taste it for you." Han Yushi couldn't help but laugh. Li Zishuan couldn't do anything about this thick-skinned person. Ching Chumo poured himself a glass of cocktail, then held it in his hand and praised, "Well, just by looking at the appearance, I can tell that it's not bad. Miss Han, Xiao Xian is really lucky to be able to find you." These words were a little ambiguous. Han Yushi's pretty face blushed. Li Zishuan glared at him and said angrily, "Hurry up and drink. Even good wine can't stop your mouth." Ching Chumo laughed, picked up the wine, took a sip, smacked his lips, and then drank it all in one gulp. Ching Chumo sighed and said, "Miss Han, the taste of your wine is very novel. I have never drunk such wine before. Well, anyway, it's very delicious, but it's a little boring. It can't be compared to the wine that Xiao Xian poured out just now." Han Yushi smiled and said, "Young Master Ching, this wine can also be matched with stronger wine. Please wait a moment." When Li Zishuan saw that Han Yushi had started to mix the wine again, he pulled Ching Chumo out and said, "Chonyo, come over and help me carry some things." "Well, don't you know how to ask the servants in your house to help you? Have you ever heard that if you want to drink good wine, then hurry up and follow me?" Ching Chumo could only follow unhappily. Li Zishuan dared to treat Lu Guogong's son as a servant. Li Zishuan asked Ching Chumo to come over to help him carry a bag of saltpeter. Although it wasn't heavy, it was free labor. It would be a waste if he didn't use it. He didn't want this guy to be bored and picky again. Last night, Li Zishuan asked his father to help him purchase a few saltpeter mines. He didn't know how his father was doing. Li Zishuan wanted to get some ice cubes. If he didn't add ice cubes to the strong cocktail, it would burn the stomach. With ice cubes, it would be more comfortable to drink. Chapter 107. By the time Li Zishuan and Ching Chumo returned, Han Yushi had already prepared a pot of strong cocktail. Ching Chumo could smell the aroma of the wine from afar. He threw the bag of saltpeter onto Li Zishuan's shoulder and walked in impatiently. Li Zishuan really wanted to pull this guy over and give him a good beating. "Hey, Miss Han, is this the strong new wine you were talking about? It smells so good. Wait for me, old Ching, to taste it." When Li Zishuan came in, he saw Ching Chumo pouring him a full glass of wine. Then, he couldn't wait to raise his head and pour it into his mouth. Li Zishuan couldn't stop him in time. This was strong wine. Sure enough, after drinking a glass of wine, Ching Chumo's neck turned red to the tips of his ears. He quickly put down the glass, bent down, and started coughing violently. His face suddenly turned as red as a monkey's butt. "Cough, cough, little Xian, this wine is really, really strong. But I, old Ching, like it. Cough, cough." Li Zishuan and Han Yushi looked at each other, speechless at this joker. Inside a room in Yunshi restaurant. "Young master, this is the wine that flying snake took from Han Tianhu's house. This subordinate has seen it and it's exactly the same as the one they sold to our restaurant." The young master seemed to be in a good mood today. After hearing the middle-aged man's report, he turned around and opened the wine jar. He sniffed the fruit wine inside and said, "This wine tastes good. The taste is not bad. But if Li Zishuan wants to make a comeback with just this mountain fruit wine, isn't it a little too whimsical?" The middle-aged man respectfully said, "Young master, you're right. You're right, young master. Now that our Yunshi restaurant has invited Xia Xingyuan to cook, our business has become even more booming. I've counted the number of customers that came this morning. It's almost the same as the number of customers that came in a day. Furthermore, the customers who ate here were full of praise for Xia Xingyuan's culinary skills. This subordinate believes that it won't be long before our Yunshi restaurant becomes the #1 restaurant in Chang'an. The young noble proudly chuckled and said, Not bad. Now that Xia Xingyuan has come to our side, release his granddaughter. Only then can he work wholeheartedly for our Yunshi pavilion. Yes, young master. The young master nodded. After a moment, he asked, Did anything happen to the flying snake at the Han village yesterday? The middle-aged man smiled and said, Don't worry, young master. Flying snake's illusory cloud movement technique is unparalleled in Jianghu. Looking at the current Jianghu, there are not many people who can catch up with him. However, when he left last night, he was discovered by Han Tianhu. This subordinate told him not to cause any trouble, so he immediately escaped without exposing his identity. The young master nodded when he heard that and said, You did well. This is indeed not the time to complicate matters. However, this Han Tianhu was quite capable to be able to detect this. You can't underestimate him in the future. You can't make the same mistake twice. Yes, young master. You've been doing well recently. This young master has seen it all. When I win the clan competition and take control, I will definitely treat you well. After giving a slap, he would give a carrot. The young master understood this principle. The middle-aged man happily said, Thank you, young master. Yongla Lane, Li Residence. In the front hall, it was lunchtime. A few maids brought in all kinds of delicacies and placed them on the dining table. Li Jingma invited everyone to take a seat. Of course, Ching Chumo, who was slightly tipsy from drinking in the backyard, was among them. This fellow had originally come to freeload. Now that he saw such good wine here, how could he still walk? Thus, the Li residents had an extra pair of chopsticks for lunch. Father, Uncle Han, how can there not be good wine when there's good food? Wait a moment, I'll bring the new wine that we just made this morning for you to try. Li Zishuan nodded. Li Jingma then went to the west courtyard to get the wine. Han Lijing looked at his daughter in surprise. He said in surprise, Yushi, you've made the wine so quickly? Han Yushi nodded and said, We've already made the initial mix. I'll try again in the afternoon to see if there's a better mix ratio. A moment later, Li Zishuan came back with 2 jugs of wine. Xian it's not like we don't have wine at home. Why do you have to make the wine yourself? Madame Li saw that her son had been busy the entire morning just to make wine. She felt a little sorry for him. In her opinion, the family had endless money to spend, and she didn't need her son to think of ways to earn money. Now that her son had been conferred a title and had status, he only needed to enjoy life at home. There was no need to do all this. Li Zishuan knew that his mother felt sorry for him. She wanted him to be a second-generation rich kid who just ate and waited for death. However, in this era there were no cell phones, no television, and no computers. Idling every day would probably make him sick. He had no choice but to find something for himself to do. Mother, the wine that I made is not available on the market. You'll like it once you try it. Madame Li hurriedly waved her hand and said with a smile, Xian, I don't drink wine. Mother, don't worry. This wine won't make you drunk. The wine that I poured for you is specially made for people who don't know how to drink. Li Zishuan said as he brought over a glass cup. After filling it to the brim, he brought it to his mother. In this era, although the glass-making process was not mature, it was still possible to buy some glass-making products from merchants at a high price. The Li family was a wealthy family, so it was natural for them to have such luxury goods. Madame Li was originally wondering why there would be wine specially made for people who didn't know how to drink wine. However, when she saw the bright red mixed wine in the glass cup in front of her, her gaze was instantly attracted by the beautiful color. Xian, what wine is this? The color is really beautiful. Mother, try it first. I'll tell you later. This child, Madame Li smiled helplessly. She picked up the wine cup, opened her red lips, and tried to take a sip. She slowly swallowed, then closed her eyes and savored it carefully. After a while, she opened her eyes and praised, Xian, this wine is really good. It's soft and mellow, and it leaves a fragrance in the mouth. It has the sweetness of the mountain fruit and a hint of the fragrance of white wine, but it's not as spicy as white wine. It's very suitable for women to drink. Xian, quickly tell me the name of this wine. Li Zishuan smiled and said, Haha, mother, I named this wine Gentle Village. What do you think, mother? Madame Li nodded in agreement and said, not bad. This name is very appropriate. Mother, Lan wants to drink it too. When Lan saw the brightly colored wine and heard her mother praising it, the little girl immediately begged with her eyes wide open. No, Lan, you're still young. You should drink the mountain fruit wine. Li Zishuan was the first to object. Although the alcohol content of this cocktail was very low, it was still wine. Lan was still young, and drinking alcohol was not good for her body. Humph, stinky brother. Lan pouted and looked unhappy. Madame Li rubbed her little head, feeling a little funny. Father, Uncle Han, this is another type of wine. It's specially prepared for you. It might be a little stronger, so you should drink it slowly. She was still a child, and her temper came and went quickly. Li Zishuan ignored the spoiled Lan and picked up the other pot of wine, pouring a cup for his father and Han Lijing. What kind of strong wine have I not drunk before? Xian, you're making it sound so serious. Father Li did not take his son's words to heart. Han Lijing saw that the top of the cup was emitting traces of cold air, and there were a few pieces of ice in the cup. He instantly exclaimed, Young master, why are there ice cubes in the cup? At this time, Li Jingma also noticed the abnormality in the cup. He was also a little surprised. Xian, we don't have an ice cellar in the residence, right? Where did you get these ice cubes? Qing Chumo calmly ate and drank on the side, not finding it strange at all. He secretly despised the two of them for making a fuss over nothing. This fool had completely forgotten that when he saw Li Zishuan produce a few ice cubes from the water in the west courtyard, his expression was much more surprised than Li Jingma and Han Lijing. Father, Uncle Han, this is the method of making ice that I learned from my master. Try this wine first. Only then did the two of them suppress the surprise in their hearts. They picked up the wine cup and took a light sniff. Immediately, an extremely strong aroma of wine and mountain fruits entered their nostrils. Han Lijing praised Li Jingma. Master, just by smelling it, I can tell that this wine is not ordinary. Li Jingma also nodded in agreement. Of course, he had this bit of knowledge. The two of them put away their contempt and took a sip. They could not help but exhale comfortably. Amazing, this old man has drunk wine all my life, but I've never drunk such a strong and mellow wine. It's really too satisfying. Li Jingma could not help but pat the table and praise. Han Lijing also sighed and said, The fragrance of this mountain fruit has become more mellow after being fermented by the strong wine. The coldness of the ice can also suppress the spiciness of the strong wine. Young master, the wine that you have mixed is really wonderful. Qing Chumo also poured a cup. He had not drunk enough in the west courtyard just now. At this time, after he heard Han Lijing's sigh, he immediately gave a thumbs up and shouted, Yes, 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 that's the feeling. Han Lijing, you said what I wanted to say. Mrs. Li and Han Yushi quickly covered their mouths and laughed. Li Zishuan automatically filtered Qing Chumo's shameless words and smiled at Han Lijing. This wine is all thanks to Yushi. I only know the ingredients in it. The ratio of each ingredient was researched by Yushi. At this time, Mrs. Li also said from the side, Han Lijing, You have a good daughter. Yushi is not only dignified and beautiful, but she is also clever and skilled. She knows everything. Whoever can marry such a beautiful woman in the future will have to cultivate 8 lifetimes of good fortune. She had always been very satisfied with Han Yushi. She was charming and had a good figure. She was good at giving birth. Unfortunately, her son was a blockhead. After so long, he still had not taken the girl down. She could only be anxious at the side. When Han Yushi heard Mrs. Li praising her, she was shy and happy. She lowered her head and did not dare to speak. Han Lijing quickly said, "Old madam, you are too kind." At this time, Li Jingma asked, "Xian what is the name of this wine?" Li Zishuan replied, "Father, I named it Drunken Immortal. What do you think?" Li Jingma pondered for a moment and nodded. "Drunken Immortal, it is very appropriate. This wine has a strong aftertaste and can easily intoxicate people. Xianra, a few days ago, you told me that you wanted to make a new thing and sell it in the Drunken Immortal house to compete with the Yunxi house. Was this wine you were talking about?" Li Zishuan replied, "Yes, this is the land of tenderness and the Drunken Immortal." "Father, what do you think are our chances of winning if we use these 2 wines to compete with the Yunxi house?" Li Jingma stroked his beard, pondered for a moment, and then said with unusual certainty, "In my opinion, once these 2 new wines, which have never appeared in the Tang Empire before, are released, the whole Chang'an city will be shaken. Our Drunken Immortal house has a 90% chance of winning." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.